Hi, good morning. I'm Councillor Paul Heinrich. I'm chairing this meeting of the Development Committee. If you haven't attended one of these meetings before, the officers who provide and present our reports and offer technical advice sit to either side of me. On the top table, in front, in the central area, sit the members of the committee who'll be making decisions on the items on the agenda. Will officers please introduce themselves?
Good morning. My name is Jeff Lyon. I'm the Development Manager.
Good morning. My name is Philip Bryson. I'm the team leader. Thank you.
Lauren Gregory, Democratic Services.
David Gleeson, Assistant Director of Planning.
Fiona Croxon, Solicitor to the Council.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome members of the public, both those in attendance in the room and those who are watching online. For those who've registered to speak, I will call you to the front, to the end of this bench at the appropriate point. You will have a maximum of 3 minutes each. Before we start formal business, the usual notices. We're not expecting a fire alarm or fire drill today, so if the alarm sounds, it is for real. But in that case, please follow officers using the marked exits and make your way to either the car park, that side of the building, or to the flagpole on the other side. Can I ask that mobile phones are turned off and that members make sure the sound of their laptops is also turned off. We'll take a break at an appropriate point in the proceedings, probably around 11. But I remind members of the public that during any break, they should not attempt to speak to members of the committee. And if you haven't found the toilets, they're out in the foyer. Okay, apologies, please, Lauren.
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies for absence have been received from Councillor John Toy. And for the next item, we have no substitutes present.
Thank you. Okay, item 4 then, minutes of the committee held on the 11th of December. We didn't have a meeting in January. I take it you have all read them. Are there any amendments, corrections? Okay, are we able to accept them as a true record? Thank you. Item 5, items of urgent business. I have none.
None received.
Thank you. Item 6, order of business. It will be as in your papers. Please note that applications PF25/2133 and LA/25/2134 will be presented and debated together, but we will be voting on them separately. Thank you. Could I have declarations of interest, please? Councillor Holliday.
Thank you, Chair. I'm predetermined on item 9 and I won't be voting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Similarly, Mr. Chairman, good morning. I'm predetermined on agenda item 10. So I will not be voting on that item or taking part in the debate.
Councillor Baker. Thank you. Any other declarations? No. In which case, let us move to the main item this morning. Holt PF/24/2530, Direction 23 dwellings. Mr. Rowson, would you present, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, councillors. Good morning, members of the public. The application in front of you today is at land north of Valley Lane at Holt. The proposals are for the erection of 23 dwellings, including 7 on-site affordable homes with associated parking, landscaping and creation of public open space. The application, councillors, is the first application for a housing allocation that you're seeing from our new local plan. I thought it was worth marking that for you this morning. In terms of the recommendation, there has been some further consideration and information submitted. If I can make you aware, members, that the recommendation at the end of this item will be varied to include now to be for approval of the application today as opposed to delegated authority. And we will be seeking to secure section 106 obligation as outlined in section 6 of your report, develop contributions. and section 5 of your report, which relates to both on and off-site biodiversity net gain. I would also add, members, that we will be including the management of on-site open space as a heads of terms to the recommendation under the section 106 contained in your report. Lauren, if I can ask you to scroll right back to the first slide. Thank you. So here you see the red line of the application site. Some of you may be very familiar with this site. It has been through the local plan process, as I highlighted earlier. You can see at this point that you've got the position of the access, which lays, if you can show that, Lauren, with your cursor, at the top of the site, in between buildings. There we are. That's the point of access to the site. And you will also see there, members, that we have adjacent residential properties around the site, which form part of your consideration in terms of amenity today. And we have a pedestrian link in the top left-hand corner of the site. Sorry, the top. I'm looking at the northwest corner of the site. We'll move on. That will be clear for you, members. Thank you for your help, Lauren. So we'll move to photographs next, please, members. We won't. We'll move to a red and blue line. So the red and the blue line show the application site, and the blue line shows adjacent land, which will be referred to for translocation and BNG purposes in a further slide later on. I think we'll see some slides now. There we are. Members, this is a key slide in terms of the consideration of amenity. You can see to the north of the site a building which is a stables conversion. The window that you see looking across the site is a window to a habitable room, which has been subject to representations within the body of your report today and will form part of your consideration in terms of its relationship with plot 23, which is a bungalow. Next slide, please, Laura. This picture is showing you the wider countryside. The point where I was describing the pedestrian link is in the northwest corner of the site. Next slide, please. So this is the view to the southwest corner of the site, displaying the wider countryside views and the Glaven Valley Conservation Area. And also, as you can see, that arrangement of the site and the way in which the site falls away to the southeast. Thank you. Next slide, please. This slide shows you pictures of the access to the site, Pound Close, showing you the relationship of the development to those near neighbours which lay to the east of the site. A slide here shows you views to the southeast of the site, showing you relationships to Valley Lane, which again, you'll note, members, from your responses, is an area where we've had consideration about residential amenity. Next slide, please. This collection of slides shows you views across the site from a footpath which runs through Spout Hills, the adjacent Nature Conservancy area. And you can see there, members, how the site rises and is undulating. We'll pick that up within the presentation when you see isometric drawings of the site and the dwellings on site. And then the final slide, which shows pictures of the access. So you can see on the left-hand side, you're looking down the access going into the site. And then on the right-hand side, from the point of entry into the site through Pound Close. That's the slides for photos. So if we now move on to the plans. Members, you can see the layout here is very much maintaining that open view towards the countryside across the site. The area of open space, which runs along the site's western boundary, provides an area of open space for recreation, but also importantly, provides a buffering between the dwellings and the BNG and Ecology Conservancy areas which lie to the west of the site. Also, members, if you can note the bungalow in the northeastern corner of the site, plot 23, and that bungalow and its relationship to the stable window that we saw out looking across that corner of the site. And then, members, finally, the thing that I ask you to note are the separation distances as you look along the southern boundary of that row of properties in terms of the properties in Valley Lane to the south. Okay. Thank you very much. So this is a three-dimensional view looking from Spout Hills across the site. There has been a considerable effort made by officers and the developer to revise the development proposals to be more fitting and in keeping with the site and indeed the whole neighbourhood plan that requires excellence in design. We as officers believe that has been achieved, and we're pleased to show you these drawings today, members, as they show you good vernacular design, and they will assimilate well into this undulating site, as you can see, with that broken series of ridge lines rising along the spine road as they fall to the lower point in the site. Next slide, please. So this is a view showing the area of open space, that buffering that I demonstrated to you, members, to the west of the development, which separates the edge of the site to that area of Nature Conservancy to the west. And again, a view looking along the line of properties to the north of the spine road. And here we have views of house types. If we can just spend a moment going through this, members, I'd appreciate that. So you can see a terrace there where you've got a mix of flint and render with pan tile, good vernacular design that reflects local proportions and detailing. You've got a semi-detached proposal there where you've got a plain gable and a hipped roof. And we have a single bungalow on the site, which again is designed with flint panels and a pan tile roof. And you have the flat example, which will provide affordable housing on the site there in the left-hand corner, and a pair of affordable housing units again, and semi-detached examples. I hope you agree, members, that the development and design have moved forward significantly and are now truly appropriate for its setting on the edge of the Glaven Valley Conservation Area and close to the town centre of Holt. Next slide, please. It's important, members, to show you that fall in the site. So here we have sectional views which show you the views to the properties to the north at the top of the access road, which show you a fall in terms of levels, which runs from 52 AD at the bottom to 62 AD at the top. So you have a significant change in levels across that site. And I believe the development and design reflect that. And again, at the bottom, sectional view, which shows you the way in which the dwellings will be arranged and are accommodating the change in levels across the site. Next slide, please. Members, I mentioned the relationship to the stables building. You'll hear from a speaker later on about this relationship. And in the bottom centre, you can see a three-dimensional view, which shows you the relationship between the bungalow and the converted stable buildings. Members, please note the bungalow has a pyramidal hipped roof, and the highest point of that roof is set some distance into the site. And then also, members, we have photographs to the left-hand side showing you the relationship of the main elevation of the stables conversion. It obviously looks away to the west of the site and across the site, and does have some relationship with the bungalow. And then, of course, you have those views that the developer has provided in terms of his projections through from the stables first floor and the view from the stables from plot 23, which I hope you find helpful. We can return to those if you require us to do that at a later stage. Next slide, please. This slide shows you the shadowing relationship between the development and the proposed bungalow. On the left-hand side, you can see the existing relationship. Please note, members, there is a tall wall between the site. It acts as something of a retainer. There are differences in site levels across the site area. And you can see that there is already an existing shadow cast. The slides show you the worst extent in November in terms of shadowing. And then on the right-hand side, members, you can see the relationship with the proposed dwelling. And you'll note, members, that even as a single-story building, because of the change in levels, that bungalow sits at a higher level than one might normally expect to a two-story building. But in any event, you have that shadowing, and that will occur at that stage at 10:15 at the worst case in November. We are content, members, that the shadowing throughout the year is acceptable. You will see that in the body of the report. Next slide, please. We have in our final slide a slide which shows you the changes in diversity of habitats across the site. The left-hand side shows you the application site as existing, and the right-hand side, the lowest slide shows you the proposed on-site BNG below. So you will see there are elements of BNG retained on site. There is a wildlife corridor along the southern boundary and that buffering area that I spoke of to the west of the development. Important, members, to note, there is also off-site biodiversity net gain and habitat creation to enable the translocation of protected species from the application site to their new home on this area of land, which lies immediately to the west. So, members, you can see the changes there, the baseline drawing showing you habitats as existing, and the lower drawing on the right bottom corner showing you the new habitats created, which are considered appropriate for the relocation of slow worms and barn owls that are found on the application site. So if we can now move to the key issues. I'll take you through these relatively briefly, members. You have got a detailed report which covers many pages, which I'm sure you've read. So the key issue, as I mentioned at the start of this presentation, was that this is an allocated site in your new Norfolk local plan. It's H17. The report contains an assessment of how the proposals respond to the 10 key development criteria. You'll have read those, members, and you can see that balancing up consideration within your report. Officers are content that the proposals will meet the most significant considerations under those criteria, but note that we have a shortfall in numbers where the allocation was designed for 27, but we have 23. I think you can see why there are significant constraints across this site and buffering relating to BNG and habitat creation. I would also say that as a result of that lesser number of dwellings, we do not have a commitment towards self-build and custom housing. That would only have come in at the higher level if we'd achieved 27 dwellings across the site. You'll also note, members, that we have a form of pedestrian linkage to Spout Hills in that northwestern corner of the site. We are unable to secure wider public access to Spout Hills through the development site. The developer gives their reasoning and justifications, which are reflected in our report, and officers are satisfied that that provides suitable consideration and that we can move forward positively despite not gaining that public access. So overall, members, officers consider the application meets SS1 and the requirements of the site allocation in the local plan. Therefore, we believe the principle is met. In terms of housing mix, you'll see a detailed discussion across the body of the report. 35% affordable housing is required in this site. We have 7 units on site and a commuted sum for 1 unit, which is provided off-site. That, together with the range of tenures, meets the considerations of the strategic housing officers who've been consulted on the matter. And as such, we consider that the proposals will effectively meet the requirements from affordable housing on this development. Officers are satisfied that the proposals will also meet building regulations M42. That's the regulation that relates to adaptable homes. We have details and information within the body of the submission that enable us to make that that assessment. We would also note, members, that within the housing mix, there are no 2-bedroom properties within the open market properties. However, this deficit is made up by the greater number of smaller units that are proposed under the housing for affordable housing on site. So that addresses the shortfall that we observe. On that basis, we're content that we have an appropriate mix of housing and tenure across the site. In terms of design, there have been substantive amendments made to this proposal as a result of the concerns raised. And we believe that the proposals, as I said, are of high quality and that they meet policies ENV8 of the local plan and the Holt neighbourhood plan, Holt 1 policy. The developer has made significant efforts to analyse and address impacts on local residential amenity. They have altered scale, mass and arrangements in terms of privacy. Regrettably, they have not been able to satisfy all concerns, and you will hear today that some residents' concerns remain on matters of amenity. The presentation has shown you the assessments of those impacts on adjacent dwellings, and the officer's report provides detailed analysis and information relating to the North Norfolk Design Guide that shows that we meet acceptable space standards for garden areas and that suitable mitigation is given in terms of privacy and amenity between dwellings. In terms of highway matters, the proposals are subject to revision and amendment. The local concerns have been noted, but officers rest that compliance is achieved with local plan policy and that no objections are raised by highways officers from Norfolk County Council to matters of highway safety and parking. Ecological impacts. Officers acknowledge the status of the site as a local nature recovery site identified by Norfolk County Council. Equally, this site was already adopted before it was given that status by the County Council. And from our point of view, we believe that the mitigation provided is substantive and the ecology officers consider that the proposals will deliver suitable biodiversity net gain and appropriate translocation of protected species from the site. On that basis, subject to securing suitable legal agreement, the proposals will comply with policy ENV4 of your local plan members. As we've noted, environmental sustainability is a key criteria in new buildings. Those issues have been reviewed in terms of carbon emissions, water efficiency, fibre connectivity and provision of electric vehicle parking. Officers are satisfied that the supporting evidence demonstrates that the proposals will meet those relevant guidances within your new local plan. The developer contributions are an important consideration in terms of these proposals. I'll note those for you here. There is a contribution to recreation spaces that amounts to £71,883 as a commuted sum for off-site delivery. We have play space provision, which is again a commuted sum of £16,890 for off-site delivery. We have provision of green space on site, which will be subject to an open space management clause within the body of the Section 106. Norfolk County Council services have noted that there are commuted sums that should be delivered for education, which stand at £96,806, and also for libraries at £4,255. There will be a contribution for GI-RAMS in terms of recreational mitigation, which stands at £6,995 and 91p. The Wildlife Trust, Norfolk Wildlife Trust, are entering into the agreement for off-site ecology management to the tune of a contribution of £60,000. Members, there will be 7 affordable units delivered on site under the Section 106, and there will be a commuted sum of £100,000 for a single off-site unit. In addition, there will be provision within the Section 106 heads of terms for biodiversity net gain management on the areas both on-site and off-site, along with provision for protected species translocation. On the basis of those developer contributions and the considerations laid out in the officer's report and my presentation to you this morning, officers conclude that the planning balance is positive, that approval should be granted subject to completion of the Section 106 agreement and imposition of appropriate conditions. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members.
Okay, we now move on to speakers. We begin with the parish council. Maggie, Dyer, if you care to come to the desk, I think you know how to switch the mic on.
Yes, I usually forget. Right. Good morning, Chair, officers and members. I'm speaking in support of this application and on behalf of Holt Town Council. This site is allocated. It is the adopted local plan that has facilitated this, and Holt is a small growth town, meaning that the development here is not speculative. It's expected and it's planned for. Holt's housing need is clear. 988 households want to live here, including 171 in the high priority need. This scheme provides a suitable mix, including 7 affordable homes and a £100,000 contribution towards an 8th, directly helping local people. The design has been significantly improved. Officers, Conservation and Design and Historic England confirm the revised layout now respects key views. It reduces building heights along the sensitive western edge and maintains a soft transition to Spout Hills and the Glaven Valley. Environmental protection is definitely built in to this scheme. Wildlife corridors on 3 sides, a dedicated slow worm and habitat enhancement side to be transferred to Holt Town Council, measures, for bats and barn owls, and £60,000 contribution to Norfolk Wildlife Trust, along with many others that have already been mentioned before me. Highways, drainage and utilities are all confirmed as acceptable, with no objections from statutory consultees. The site is in flood zone 1, the drainage design is robust, and Anglia Water confirms foul capacity. The community benefits are considerable. Over 88,000 for open space and play, contributions for education and libraries, and more than double the required on-site open space. Officers are very clear. The benefits outweigh the limited policy conflicts, and the recommendation is to approve. For all these reasons, we support the application and we request that members will approve this application. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I have 4 objecting speakers who will have 3 minutes each. We'll begin with John Wells.
Good morning. As you can see, I'm John Wells, and we have 4 presentations. I'd like to stress we've developed them together as a team. They're part of a hopefully cohesive set. Okay, next slide, Lauren, please. Okay, basically, it's an important location. It's in 2 conservation areas. It's adjoining areas of natural beauty, European zone of interest, etc., as it says on the slide. Planning rules dictate that conservation areas, now bear in mind this is in 2, should be protected and enhanced. Yeah, the application does neither. Building houses on a countryside field is hardly protecting and enhancing the area. Norfolk Council recently adopted a nature recovery strategy to get us all closer to nature. The King's been banging on about this for many years. The field is designated as one of the enabling areas of this strategy. The development is therefore in direct conflict to that strategy. Spout Hills, it's an important wetland, meadow and lowland fell habitat. As far as wetland meadows goes, we've lost 98% of those over the years. It's an important area. Wildlife trusts are very concerned about the impact more footfall will have on that area. Also, the current plan, and it's already been mentioned, the current plan requires improved pedestrian access from that site. It's not being presented, it's not being provided within this application. Next slide, Lauren, please. Okay, the field is teeming with wildlife, deers, hares, kestrels, and 3 protected species, bats, the barney, the barn owl, and slow worms. This housing development will cause habitat destruction and intolerable light spill to these creatures. They're very sensitive to light. The field's an important western green buffer between Spout Hills and Holt. The application will obviously have adverse edge effects on Spout Hills. It's already identified in Holt plans and indeed the nature recovery strategy as a key green infrastructure asset and requiring edge protection. 250 meters is a typical area that's mentioned. The achievement of mandatory biodiversity net gain of 10% has been challenged by the professor at Oxford Brookes University. The on-site, if you look at the on-site land, it's around about a 36% loss. The gain is only made by improving the off-site land. There's water issues, potential water issues based on location, potential for runoff into the Glaven streams, especially during the construction phase. And there doesn't seem to be a plan for water runoff during construction. If construction goes on about 2 years, that is potentially a major problem. Also, water needs to be pumped up some 7 meters into the sewer, the foul water. So if that pump goes wrong, there's going to be
I'm
trouble.
going to stop you at that point.
Okay, thank you very much.
Next speaker is Steve Barrett. When you're ready.
Yes, I'm Steve Barrett. I'm going to talk about housing issues. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, councillors. And we've got to have the first slide, please, Lauren. I want to make clear that development of this site is not essential to meeting the housing target for Holt. The local plan targets 207 homes here, split between 2 sites, and 27 on this Greenfield site, which is north of Valley Lane. But I want to point out that Norfolk Homes has already acquired a site which is not included in the local plan, which is Glaven Place Phase 2, which is off Cly Road. Next slide, please. Yeah, this Phase 2 proposes a further 86 homes on a brownfield site next door to Phase 1. They already have permission to revise the road layout to provide access to Phase 2, demolish the poultry barns, derelict poultry barns there. This site plan is from the planning document submitted relating to that. 86 homes, this is more than 3 times the number proposed for Valley Lane site. And 35% of these would be 30 affordable homes. That's more than 4 times the number proposed for the Valley Lane site. Again, this is a brownfield site, not a greenfield. There's also parking planned proposed of 100 cars, which is very important in Holt. I'd also like to point out that this site was included in the 2017 land assessment and considered suitable and available for development, but it wasn't included in the local plan consultation. In fact, there are at least half a dozen sites identified in 2017 that are still available for development. So next slide, please. Holt has seen a huge building programme in the last few years, nearly 500 new homes in the last 4 years alone, 25% increase, no improvement in infrastructure, about 100 homes currently for sale, half of them are new builds. So there's no great demand from buyers. I'd also like to mention there was an employment land site in the draft local plan, which was removed from the adopted plan. So there's nothing in the local plan for industrial growth in Holt, which raises the question, why do we need to build so many new homes here? And obviously there's a good chance these will be bought as second homes or holiday lets. Next slide, please. The number of affordable homes in this application has fluctuated dramatically, 8, 7, 4. We learned from a Freedom of Information request that Bayfield Homes submitted a financial viability assessment that claimed that the development is only viable if all buildings are for market sale. That's 0 affordable homes. This has been withdrawn, but the council was concerned about the implicit lack of transparency, their words, regarding financial viability. So one asks, how can they submit an FEA saying 0 affordable homes, then agree to 7, and then there's no evidence to support that this is viable? Next slide, please. Just to wrap up. We've demonstrated that the housing target.
That point. We move on to the third speaker, Iona Chamberlain, please. When you're ready.
First slide. Another main concern is site access and safety. The entrance is on a potentially dangerous A148, the busiest road in Norfolk and primary route for heavy vehicles, many that don't adhere to the speeding limit. This is against the need for safe access and traffic flow as outlined in NNP 109 and SS6, recently demonstrated last December, when there was an accident and a car went in the back of a lorry at a pedestrian crossing, which many senior citizens and primary school children use, only 16 metres from the close. Previously, a speeding lorry swerved and pulled my mother's car around the junction, writing it off and couldn't stop until it reached the church. She was so scared that she never drove again. Research indicates there will be a potential daily increase of 140 vehicle movements plus numerous delivery vans causing more congestion. Next. As you can see, there are many potential danger points within a 200-metre stretch. A busy high street, Bunches Access, Valley Lane, the school exacerbated by school buses and parents, cottage parking in the Methodist Church plus pedestrian crossing, and visibility is also frequently obscured due to large vehicles. From 30 years experience, I know it can often take many minutes to exit Clown Close, even at low season. More cars lead to people becoming impatient, careless, and causing more accidents. It's incredible that Norfolk Highways haven't asked for a transport assessment. Do they think the significantly increased danger to traffic and especially pedestrians will be avoided by painting double yellow lines? We consider this to be inadequate and we trust you will too. Next. Also, the vehicles involved during the potential 2-year construction represent an even higher traffic risk due to their size and number. Access through the narrow close will be particularly hazardous for their many lorries and disruptive to local neighbours, half of which are elderly and disabled and have ambulance in attendance. Next, this is a rough sketch of how houses on Norwich Road will be overlooked and overshadowed. We lose privacy and endure noise and light pollution. Also, as the sun sets on the field in winter, we lose many hours of sunlight a day that warms our homes. Plus, the community would lose the full view of Spout Hills and Glaven Valley. The number of people who could potentially benefit from this development is far outweighed by the adverse effect of their plan on those who already live there and who you currently represent. Just because land can be built upon it doesn't mean it's the right place to do so for the welfare of all. It's a valuable green space so close to the town. We are a great example of community democracy in action, receiving great support from people who recognise the importance of this site, and we as neighbours have come together to research and work for the interest of the community, not just ourselves. We hope you respect that and refuse an application on safety aspects and access. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last objecting speaker, Val Ballard, please.
I live in the home marked 1 here. The case officer has presented the council's argument for the acceptability of these plans in relation to the homes marked in red. I'd like to build on what Iona has said and present the reality of it for us neighbours. Next. These will be the views from my bedroom and sitting room windows of plot 23. Next. This illustrates how this difference in site level means the bungalow will be horribly overbearing. The fence shown here is also an issue, as the current plans propose 3 different boundary treatments along my garden wall, which will look just horrible. I've raised this, but no alternatives have been offered. Also, my concerns regarding the adequate management of the wildlife corridor, currently a tangle of brambles, have not been addressed. Next. This overshadowing image was omitted. It clearly shows how the sun streaming into my French windows will be blocked. Additionally, there's been no acknowledgement of the extra shadow created by the fence marked here. Please also note that the area outside my garage doors is the main utility area of my garden where we congregate and barbecue, and it'll now be directly underneath someone's bedroom window. The obscured glass in the windows on this side of plot 23 will not prevent the residents from simply opening them and looking straight into my home and garden. Next. My home is curtilage listed. This fact has been totally overlooked. In desperation, I emailed the council on January the 19th, proposing an alternative plan and asking for it to be presented to Bayfield. I had to chase several times, and eventually this meeting was convened on February the 9th. But the deadline imposed by the council for less than 36 hours later denied adequate time to find a compromise. Next. I proposed this layout, conceding light and sun from my bedroom window to protect the front of my house. Bayfield rejected it because a few parking spaces would be lost. Surely a few extra parking spaces can be found. Some of the proposed homes have 4. I'd like the opportunity to discuss this further. Next, moving to the home here marked 4. Next. My neighbours at 14A Valley Lane are on land much lower than the site. They are very disappointed that the case officer's report does not address their objections to plots 9 and 10. No measurements from these properties to their home have been made available. No mitigation offered for the windows that will be directly overlooking their bedroom, and the mature planting they requested has not been included. Next. Finally, my elderly neighbours at 4 Valley Lane, 3 on this plan, have asked me to say the following. The officer's report acknowledges that plot 5 is below the council's recommended minimal distance at only 8.9 metres from our sitting room window, causing daylight, disturbance, vibration, intrusive noise, and 5 car bays impacting our human rights, health and well-being. To reduce these concerns, please remove plot 5 or 1, enabling the southeast corner building line to move north by a few metres. The residents of 1, 2 and 4 Valley Lane request you seriously consider this to avoid them being completely boxed in. Next, these policies should have protected
I'll
our
have to
home.
stop you at that point, I'm afraid. Thank you. We have a supporting speaker, Jamieson Bird, the agent. You will have 12 minutes as the objectors have had their 12 minutes. You can be briefer than that, it would be appreciated. Thank you.
I have got some slides, I think, prepared, or some images with also a small animation, which I'm very happy for those just to be scrolled through, perhaps at sort of 10 or 15-second intervals, if that's okay. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Jamieson Bird, and I am both the Managing Director and the only shareholder of Bayfield Homes. You'll also notice that I'm the only person here today. I don't have a big PR firm. I don't have a big planning consultancy here setting out our position on our behalf. It is just me, as it has been throughout this process. For us, today marks the culmination of 3 years of hard work and a huge financial commitment. A commitment a business like so many our size cannot afford to lose. As an SME, the market over the last few years has been tough. And as a local employer based just outside of Holt in Stoddy, trying to develop and deliver award-winning schemes across East Anglia, we are already fighting geography just to be here. But here we want to stay. Having a site in Holt is something I haven't been able to achieve in over 10 years of trying. This site isn't just important to local people, it is really important to us, not only to keep local people employed, but importantly, because being local, we appreciate its significance, its heritage, its landscape, and its relationship with the town and the many special features of Holt. And I hope the design in front of you today illustrates that effort. Bayfield are not a builder of mass production, bland square boxes. This is my business. We have thought about every aspect of design and worked hard with your officers to make this the best design outcome we can. We have worked with Mark Brands, Philip Rowson, Alana Hogarth in your design and conservation team, Kathy Batchelor and Ben Jervis in landscape and ecology, all to make sure that what we have produced is a credit to the conservation area and Holt itself. We've spent days and weeks walking Holt and adapting our design to meet the uniquely varied nature of the town, the Georgian and Victorian architecture being the most predominant, right down to the size of flint, dental courses, voussoir lintels, gutter brackets, sash windows, and even the mock shop front of plot 1. These are all reflected in the design in front of you. The land of Pound Close has been through a rigorous assessment to become allocation H17 under the local plan, being adopted just 2 months ago. The site, as you know, is allocated for 27 dwellings with a minimum of 700 square metres of open space and a number of other specific allocation criteria. In response to consultations, we have only been able to deliver 23 dwellings, but we have managed to deliver double the open space requirement in the allocation, some 1,500 square metres. We were asked to protect views from footpath 23 and Thornage Road, to deliver views from the countryside, of the countryside from Pound Close or Norwich Road, to provide ecology buffers for identified and protected species, to provide an additive form of development that respected both distant views, but also the conservation area of this wonderful Georgian market town. We're even dedicating at no cost 1 acre of adjoining land for biodiversity and another 6 acres of land for the expansion of Spout Hill County Wildlife Site that will not only help access to it for many people, but widen the scope of wildlife in this area, something we offered to do ourselves for the good of the town. We are providing policy levels of affordable housing, 7 dwellings of mixed sizes and a contribution for the balance, all agreed with Nikki Debbage, your own housing officer. In fact, there are no objections from any statutory consultees to our proposal, none, including Norfolk County Highways. We've worked hard to bring development away from neighbouring homes while balancing the requirements of all that's been asked of us. It has not been easy. Is it perfect? Well, only you can decide. But in our opinion, it is as close as we think we can make it. We know from the objectors' comments that many principal issues exist for them, but the site was allocated for a reason. So it is the detail that we must consider. As has been pointed out, many concerns exist around specific areas. These include plot 5 and number 4 Valley Lane, as Val mentioned, where we have worked hard to ensure that despite a 3-metre high wall between these dwellings, that there are no windows that overlook, that we are using light colour render or painted brickwork. We have hit the roof and in no way do we cast shadow. They, like Stable Flat that I will come on to, have a beautiful view of the field, but there is no right to a view, and the site is one that you have chosen to be allocated. We've worked hard with 14A and B Valley Lane, adjoining plot 10, to ensure that again there is no overlooking, something we have achieved with further discussion. Stable Flat, however, is the most affected by these proposals, as Val Bowers has outlined. We have spoken at length, and as Val knows, we have undertaken a number of alternative design options to try and mitigate the concerns that she has raised. We've moved development away and offset our homes from her 2-storey building. We've reduced 2 2-storey dwellings into 1 single-storey disabled accessible bungalow. We ensured that there are no principal windows overlooking her. We increased the landscaping and the number of trees between us. We have obscured glazed windows, increased the height of fencing, and even offered to adjust the mix of homes to move everything away from her, leaving a small parking court and 3 visitor spaces nearby. Val asked that we move the accessible bungalow in front of her window, overlooking the parking court. This would block light into her window, and whilst that is something that she would accept, we simply cannot do that. Not for the loss of parking spaces, but because it's poor planning for the long term. None of our proposals have proven acceptable, and regrettably, time beat us both in the lead up to committee. That said, if committee feel our proposals could do with further attention in this area, then we would be willing to accept a deferral to work on this to officers' satisfaction. But I should say here and now that officers feel we have achieved the best and most balanced outcome possible. We can and have demonstrated that there is almost no shadowing of Stable Flat, save for a small area for an hour on the 21st of November at 10:15 each year. The view from Stable Flat is what will be lost, but no matter what is developed here, that will be the case. It is regrettable and I sympathise with her concern, but it is also the type site topography and allocation that have seen fit to deliver this. The development really will be a credit to the town, and I am personally determined to ensure that the quality of homes we deliver here lives up to what Holt deserves. Planning is hard, design is hard, and trying to meet every concern expressed isn't always possible. We have a design in front of you that meets nearly every measure required as part of your newly adopted policies and your allocation criteria, with no statutory objections. I don't envy your decision today, but I do hope that you can recognise the 3 years of effort made by both us and your officers, and indeed the quality of what is in front of you. And I hope very much that you can support your officers' recommendation and approve our proposals. I'm very happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. We now move to the local members. Councillor Beattie, I understand you don't wish to speak. Thank you. Councillor Rouse.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I know this is a sensitive topic, sensitive development, and I want to just thank you all for your contributions. I have a duty as an elected councillor to raise some of the concerns in regards to this development that have been brought to my attention by my constituents, of which there have been many. My first point of objection relates to the NNLP policy CC7, that being flood risk and surface water drainage. This development has the potential to cause excessive rainwater runoff to the River Glaven, impacting Leathernsett, Thornage, and even reaching out as far as Cley and Blakeney. The implications require serious consideration. My second objection references CC10 and relates to biodiversity net gain. The site in question is the habitat of several protected species, as we have already found out today, including bats, slowworms, and most significantly of all, the very symbol of our ward, the barn owl. It's my fear that this development will not meet the necessary requirements to protect our protected species, given that biodiversity net gain will decrease below 10% should the development take more than a year. H17, as it currently stands, offers an ideal ecological buffer between our already developed housing and the incredibly popular Spout Hills development. Spout Hill. Development of this site will weaken this buffer and disturb ecological species when other more adequate brownfield sites can be found to cover just 23 homes across our ward. As well as this disruption of wildlife, there is the risk of traffic congestion in what is already a very busy stretch of road. The Norwich Road already suffers with congestion and traffic issues, and adding potentially another 20 to 30 residential vehicles will exacerbate the issue, particularly concerning given the close proximity to the local primary school. Additionally, the housing development has faced significant backlash due to boundary issues with local residents, their right to privacy, adequate space, and their right not to feel overlooked within their own homes. This proposal on closure of consultation received over 100 objections for a significant number of reasons. I would encourage committee members to consider the views of those within our local community before coming to their final decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lyon, you wish to comment on anything?
I mean, clearly it's a difficult case in many ways. I mean, this is an allocated site in your local plan, and I think we shouldn't lose sight of that fact. I mean, there are a number of representations made today sort of questioning whether the site should have been allocated. whether we like it or not, that decision has already been taken by Inspector David Reed. He gave his recommendations that the site should be included, and the site is in our local plan, and it was signed off by full council on the 17th of December. So the arguments about whether it should or not be included in the local plan, that's not for debate today. It's already in the local plan. Your key tests are whether it complies with the policies in your development plan, including the allocation policy H17. And the office had been through an assessment of the scheme against those policies and the other relevant policies in the local plan. So from our perspective, it's fairly clear cut in terms of the decision that you should make today. But we recognise it's not easy when you've got development going next to housing. There will be some unhappiness about development going next to people's properties, and that's the difficulty of planning. That's the sort of judgments that we have to make in terms of weighing up one issue against the other. So just wanted to make sure you bear that in mind. It is an allocated site, and that does weigh heavily, and we should be making decisions in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. And from what we've seen in the reports, we don't feel there are sufficient material considerations to justify a departure from the development plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask Jeff a question, please? Jeff, sort of sustainable use of land, or sort of good use of land that we used to have in the old plan, it was H07, and we used to talk about how many dwellings a hectare. Do we have that policy gone into the new plan?
I don't believe we have a specific density policy, but the allocation specifies 27 dwellings as a target for the site. But clearly the applicant has recognised the constraints that we've all heard today about relationship with neighbouring properties, and they put forward a scheme of 23, which they feel addresses the policy requirements without causing detriment to residential amenities. So we're not raising concerns about density on this site in terms of over provision.
I'm going to raise concerns over density. I don't think there's enough houses here. This is within 80 metres of Holt High Street. And I think we should be, if we looked at old policy, we'd be looking at nearly 40 a hectare, which was put us at sort of 37, 38 properties. I don't think we're aiming high enough. I get it's a sensitive site, but that's my comment. I understand it's not going to change now, but I'd very much like to support the officer's recommendation, and I'm happy to propose.
Thank you, Chair. Just returning to what Officer Lyons has said, was the inspector aware that it was a nature recovery site when it was allocated? Because is the chronology sufficient for him to have, because I'm somewhat concerned to hear that it is that. And also, could we confirm that this is the 3 questions actually. The second question is, can we confirm, have the 6 acres which are proposed to be given to the Spout Hill site, is that covered under any of the obligations or any of the legal terminology? And my third question is, can we have a site visit? Because I was quite surprised by the sort of overlooking, etc., brought up by the objectors. And I noticed that there's quite a lot of obscure glazing being put in various walls and things like that. And I'd be quite interested, it wasn't very clear on the plan actually, what the interaction was with the existing buildings. And so I wonder if a site visit might be appropriate. Thank you.
I would probably say not, on the basis that this site has been through considerable consultation as part of the local plan. It has been assessed and reviewed by an independent planning inspector who has made his recommendation that that site is included. We have accepted principle of development on the site. So
The question there was, the actual adjacency of buildings wasn't very clearly depicted on the site plan. It was quite clearly highlighted today in the presentations, and I would be more comfortable making a decision have I actually seen that.
at the moment, I have a proposal accepting the officer recommendation. I can't take another proposal for a deferral at this point. The officers wish to respond.
I mean, the question about the local nature recovery strategy, I mean, that was adopted, as I understand, in November, late November this last year. So that's the adoption point was post the inspector issuing their letter. So the point of adoption, that was sort of after the inspector had written to us. So clearly he wouldn't have had the adoption point in his mind, but clearly he would have been aware that it was advancing in the background, but obviously at that point it wasn't adopted. On the specific question about sort of the 6 hectare bit of land, I don't know if Officer Ralston wants to, with more knowledge of the specifics of this case, wants to comment on.
Thank you, Jeff. You'll note the revised recommendation we put up earlier on, and that included provision within the heads of terms for the section 106 for both on-site and off-site BNGs. So it will be included within the body of the section 106, and I'm informed by legal services officers that that would be a significant and detailed consideration in terms of the part of any 106. So that would include both the BNG land and the additional land which is given over for translocation. We can return to slides. Those 2 areas of land are distinct within the proposal, so I don't want them to be sort of considered as the same. They will be different, and they will also be managed with biodiversity net gain in mind when public access is considered to those areas of land. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hankins.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to comment that it's unusual to look at a proposal for development from an SME. And I think this reflects the activity and work that's gone into what is, I think, a very sensitive development in a rural area. There is a demonstrable housing need. There's no question about that. So I would like to commend the officers and the developers in the work that they put into this plan to arrive at a very, I think, sensitive and objective development. I have 2 queries, and they both concern access, pedestrian access, and also vehicle access. In terms of pedestrian access, in the plan or in the notes, it talks about the criteria in number 5, which is improved. It has departed from the normal standards. I'd like to understand more about that and what that looks like. And secondly, clearly the adjacent main road, which is a very busy road, is. I understand that the County Council have had the opportunity to comment on this, but what were their comments? Are they happy or are they concerned about this, concerned about the access? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. You wish to take that?
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you, councillors. If we could return to the officer presentation. Sorry, many presentations for you this morning, Lauren. And there's a slide of the proposed layout. There we go. Oh, that one there. Okay. So you could probably let me do it. Have left in here. I'm just going to circle my cursor here. That's the area where you can see there is a footpath link. So I'm not double jointed numbers. I'll do my best to speak into the mic. But you can see that there is a footpath running through here to this point. This matter was subject to a significant level of debate with the developer and very careful consideration. The aspiration has always been to ensure that we had public access through this development site to Spout Hills. And I think that aspiration probably still remains amongst officers. However, we do have a cogent and a balanced justification from the developer, which has provided access through a coded gate for residents on this site to Spout Hills and access for maintenance. There will be no public access, as I noted in my presentation to you today. The developer considers that the access is at this point very, very steep and is not an appropriate wider public access and certainly wouldn't comply with DDA regulations in terms of footpaths. It drops away quite steeply at that point as it leaves the site. Instead of providing access here, the developer is looking to provide a maintenance and management scheme which will provide access to Spout Hills lower down, which will be in a more accessible position. So although we don't have access through the site, I think officers are content to rest that there is a reasonable justification and an alternative provision which will give public access through Spout Hills to the areas of land that are going to be dedicated as a result of the development. So we rest that it doesn't meet criteria 5 precisely, but it will deliver public access to Spout Hills in a different way.
Thank you. Where is that alternative access?
I'm going to have to ask you members to use your imagination. So you'll be aware of the blue land that we have that surrounds the edge of the site here, which falls away here. And you'll remember the plan that I showed you with BNG land here and additional translocation areas over here. So the public access will be in this area here where it meets an existing footpath which runs through.
And the vehicle access onto the main road?
I think your question, if I can clarify that through the chairman, was about the precise comments of the county highways. Is that fair? Yes, we can read those to you.
Excuse me, it's not a particularly long response in terms of the actual wording. It's yes, thank you for consulting the Highway Authority. This is dated the 9th of December. The Highway Authority has considered the additional information submitted on work to the local highway network and have no objection to the proposed highway works, subject to various conditions. And those conditions have been reflected in the heads of terms that are in your recommendation in your papers. So there's various in there that have been captured in the report. So against, they raised no objection, subject to conditions, I think is the bottom line.
And they put no conditions on it?
They have suggested a suite of conditions, and they have been captured in the report in the recommended list of conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Before we move on, members, I'm advised by a legal officer that I may have made a slight error in my understanding of these versions of standing orders. Apparently, planning committee meetings may be deferred for site visits when members require a better understanding of a proposal's impact, location or context. So, Councillor Holiday, you may propose a deferral for a site visit if you wish, but you must have a seconder and we will need to vote on it. Thank you.
I will propose a deferral for a site visit. Thank you.
Thank you. You will second that, Councillor Netherway. Thank you. In which case we will now need to vote on a deferral before we can proceed further. Lauren.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is voting for a deferral for a site visit, against or abstention. Councillor Beattie?
No, you
abstain. Councillor Brown?
Against.
Councillor Fisher? Councillor Fitch-Tillett?
Against.
Councillor Hankins? Councillor Heinrich?
Against.
Councillor Holiday? Councillor MacDonald?
Against.
Councillor Netherway? Councillor Patterson?
Against.
Councillor Kimtoy?
Against.
And Councillor Vickers?
Against.
The motion has fallen.
Thank you. In which case we now return to the debate on the proposals as they are in front of us. Councillor Fitch-Tillett, you were indicating want to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everybody. I think we have heard all the reasons why we should be allowing this. I think it is a very, very attractive proposal. And I have to remind members, and I'm sure we all know this, that unfortunately, residents are not entitled to a view. That is planning law. So with all the things that we have heard, the enormous amount of work that's been done on this, the developer has worked so hard. Congratulations. I think you've done a really, really attractive proposal there. I am more than happy to second Councillor's proposal to accept this as it is.
Thank you. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to say thank you very much for all contributors today. that helped me certainly to get my head around this one. It is a very sensitive site. I spend a lot of my time trying to ensure that habitat is not lost. And it's very sad, really, when we have to lose any piece of ground to housing. But it's been said that this is an allocated site. And I would think it would be very difficult to provide better housing on this allocated site than we've seen this morning. It's certainly the best looking development that I've seen since I've been sat here. There are very few objections and possibly no objections. AWA are saying they have sufficient capacity, which we always raise our eyebrows at, but certainly there are no objections from anybody. This is an allocated site, as I've said. If we were to refuse this development in a few years' time, we could have something that's really rather a lot nastier in the present climate. So I will be voting for the officer's assessment of this one.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to come in? Yes, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everybody. Well, I do agree with many of the remarks in support of this application that have already been made. And I also add my thanks to the applicant for the due consideration they have given to design, timely in the sense that we are about, as an authority, to revise our design codes, which now that we have the new local plan, need updating. And I'm sure, looking at this scheme, that this scheme would be likely to accord with any revised design codes that we bring forward in the months to come. I've just got one query, really, and I'm quite familiar with the site. I've lived in Holt, used to visit Spout Hills at least once a week, so I'm really familiar with the area. And I know that irrigation, surface water runoff, flooding impact is a concern, a legitimate concern, in respect of any new development impacting on Spout Hills. So I just would welcome the views of officers on why no construction water management plan was considered appropriate for this particular development. I think the lead local flood agency on page 15, bullet point 4, saying that they are happy with it proceeding by way of a condition. Can I just have a view on why that's acceptable and why a water management plan is not acceptable? And can I make a shout out for hedgehogs, Mr. Chairman? I see that we are preserving and looking after our swifts, which is fantastic, but I think in the report our hedgehogs seem to be coming a distant second. So it would be nice to know if we've got some hedgehog highways included in the design.
Thank you, Chairman, councillors. The position with surface water runoff is there is no recommendation from the LLFA for a specific condition relating to construction surface water management plans. Councillor Brown and I have had a debate about those of late in a different place. Members, construction surface water management plan is an interim plan that deals with what happens on the site between the development starting and it connecting into its final surface water management strategy. So as it suggests, it's whilst the construction phase is going forward. There is a supporting flood risk assessment by the applicant, and the LLFA simply suggests that the development must comply with that and recommend appropriate conditions. So as much as Councillor Brown and I are fans of construction surface water management plans, there is no bespoke recommendation from the LLFA. And briefly, a word for hedgehogs. We do have wildlife corridors along the sides of the site. So in this occasion, there are dedicated wildlife corridors, which should give passage for wildlife across the site. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any other member wish to speak? No, thank you. In which case, we have the recommendation before us to approve, proposed by councillor Patterson, seconded by councillor Fitch-Tillett. Can we go to the vote, please, Lauren?
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Beatty,
Abstain.
councillor Brown,
For,
councillor Fisher,
4.
councillor Fitch-Tillett, for, councillor Hankins, councillor Heinrich,
4.
councillor Holiday, councillor MacDonald,
4.
councillor Neverway, councillor Patterson,
4.
councillor Toy,
4.
and councillor Vickers. That is 9 votes for, 2 against, and 2 abstention. Oh, 1 abstention. The vote is carried.
The application is approved as per the presentation of the Rose. Thank you. Fifteen minutes break before we move to the next item. Thank you. Move on. Okay, welcome back. We'll move to item 9 on the agenda now, which is right next to C. Russell.
Thank you, Chairman. Lauren's working away. We will have the presentation on screen very shortly. No pressure, Lauren. There we are. Thank you, Lauren. So item 9 of your agenda is at Cly. It's application PF 25/1571. The proposal is for demolition of a traditional construction dwelling and construction of a replacement dwelling with associated landscape and widening of access. Members, please note, this is a self-build proposal. The application is at Thornhill Farm, Bridgefoot Lane, Cly next to sea. Can I have the first slide, please? So on this slide, you have the red line of the application site, showing you the position of the bungalow as the larger of the two squares on site. There we are. And the garage, which is the smaller of the squares there. And you can see access to Bridgefoot Lane in the centre. We're on form. Great. And Blue Land lying to the west of the application site, land within the applicant's ownership. There we are. Site location. Next plan, please. Here you have a plan showing the existing site. You can see zoomed in there the relationship of the existing bungalow, the access we've just talked about, and the garage. Importantly here, members, I'd like you to note a couple of things. The first is the number of trees across the site. The site is heavily vegetated. It does have mature trees. And also, members, if you can just make out the faint lines that show we have a site topography assessment survey, which has given us contours across the site, and there are spot heights that have been undertaken. We do have a detailed site survey here. Next photo, please. So the photos here, you can see from the red arrows, which our officers have kindly drawn, showing you the rear of the property. And the view is taken, as you can see, from the arrow in that plan to the left-hand side. Next one, please. Here we have an important slide, members, showing you the mature planting. With mature planting, the trees grow, the canopies are obviously at a higher level, and there is an element of the canopy here that will not screen new development. You can see that there is an area which is open here to the western site boundary, and that's an area which is subject to proposed understory planting as part of the new proposals. You'll see that on the proposed plan. And again, you can see the relationship with those mature trees and the need for understory planting to help this building better assimilate into the local landscape. Next slide, please. Here we have a site photo showing you the existing bungalow. Members, please note the height of the bungalow, the scale and mass. You can just about make it out beyond the wisteria on the entrance porch there. It's a modest timber-clad bungalow. And again, a view from the parking area on site. It's set up a little bit from the entrance, so you're actually zoomed in closer to the building. And I think here, members, I'm going to ask you to note the pitched gable roof on this property. You will see there is a difference between the traditional form of construction and the contemporary proposals that are being built out under the proposals. The proposals are flat roofed, and you need to see through the wireframes that I'll show you shortly the differences in terms of height, scale and mass. But that's a useful photograph that shows you a bungalow that does have a footprint in the landscape and does have a height, scale and mass associated with it. Next one, please. And here you've got highways access on Bridgefoot Lane. You'll note, members, in your recommendation, there is a requirement to improve the access in terms of the recommendation for conditions from the county highways officer. The county highways officer has accepted a revised proposal with visibility improvements, which will ensure a safe access and egress to the site. Next one, please. And here we have the view looking east onto the site. So looking across that blue land that we talked about earlier on. Members, here, I think you can see in the front of the camera, very tall, strong, mature hedging along Bridgefoot Lane. And you can begin to pick up the effect of the planting which surrounds the site as well. Next slide, please. Looking north out of the site. So this is the garden area, and you recall the pines, conifers along the northern site boundary, which were mature but had visibility beneath the canopies. That's a key slide there to note the additional planting. Next slide, please. And here we have the existing plan. I've got a note above it, which is showing you that is the existing plan, and that was the plan that we showed earlier. Just to refresh you, you can see the position of the bungalow and the garage and the point of access. Proposed plan, please. Here we are. So you have a zoomed in floor plan to the left-hand side, showing you the ground floor of the proposed dwelling and the first floor element, which is away in the northern part of the new dwelling. It does not cover the entirety of the dwelling. And I'd also ask you members to note on the right-hand side, on the proposed plan layout, that we have green roofs on the flat single-story element to the dwelling, and we have photovoltaic cells on the roof of the property on the first of the two-story elements. I'd also ask you members to note the additional planting along boundaries, and you will see, members, that there are draft finished floor levels shown and landscaping contours on this plan, which give us reasonable assurance as to the height and scale of this building as it would be set within the landscape. We are looking to condition finished floor levels on any approved development in terms of recommended conditions. Next plan, please. So plans of the simple bungalow. Again, please note the pitched roof and height of the bungalow and the proposed. So members, I hope you can pick out on the screen the red wire frame of the existing bungalow on these drawings. So that shows you the extent of change. Now, it's important here, members, to note that our policy is not one now under your new local plan that refers to a particular amount of development as opposed to what was previously on the site. You are not restricted in that way. The policy itself talks about landscape impacts from the new proposals. So it's helpful to see in terms of the wireframe on this photo, on this set of plans, exactly where the existing bungalow is as set against the proposed replacement dwelling. And I would say, members, that the building has been scaled back significantly by the applicant as part of these amended proposals. So important to note, flat roof structure, scale and massing is greater than the existing bungalow. But I would also say, members, the first floor elements are limited. They are controlled. And I'd also say to you, members, that we have conditions looking at light restricting glass on key elevations to the dwelling. So those larger windows themselves will be restricted in terms of light emission and light pollution. Three dimensionals, they can describe to you what the building looks like much better than I. So I'll let you sink in on those for a moment or two. And you can see the way that the building assimilates into the site. It is cut into the levels. Next plan, please. So, key issues. We're going to talk about the principle of the development. Your local plan recognises that this is a countryside site. There's no surprises there for anybody, I guess. And it's also in the national landscape. So that, along with the Glaven Valley Conservation Area, are very important considerations. We have a site which is protected for its own right and its importance in terms of appearance and impact. The replacement dwelling is considered specifically under your new policy HOU6, whereby we should expect high quality design and a proposal which does not materially increase the impact of the dwelling on the appearance of the surrounding area. That's your test. Officers consider the issue turns on the compliance with policy HOU 6 and that otherwise policies SS2, EMV1 and EMV7 are satisfied. We can consider replacement dwellings in the national landscape, in conservation areas and in the countryside. Our policies allow us to do that. So, considerations for design and conservation. We note there is an increase in floor area. Floor area of the existing bungalow stands at 135 square metres. As proposed, that rises to 269. But members, that is not the key consideration. Consideration is the impact of that change. The site is undulating and it has significant landscaping, both existing and proposed, as you've seen on those drawings. There is an appropriate contemporary design, which is based on interconnected boxes. It refreshes an otherwise unremarkable timber-clad bungalow. I'm going to tell you, councillors, it really is that. And you have a contemporary design coming forward, which has merit. The proposals will introduce a more efficient building in terms of carbon emissions. Solar PV is on the roof and we have green roof planting as well. There are air source heat pumps, water efficiency measures and EV charging. The proposals will bring the building into the 21st century. Overall, officers consider that the proposals will comply with policy HOU 6 for the reasons given in the report. And we balance that the proposals will not materially increase impacts on the appearance of the surrounding area and comply with the high quality design required both under HOU 6 and ENV 8 and also our North Norfolk Design Guide for Good Measure. Landscape and ecology have been considered. There are no objections raised. We note the national landscape area and the very high bar that should be reached for new development in this setting. Officers have considered these higher standards of protection and along with that landscaping we've mentioned and careful management of the embedding of the development into the landscape, we consider that those along with ecology measures will mean that we meet landscape and ecology considerations under policies ENV 1, 2, 3 and 4. Highways issues, as I mentioned earlier on, members, have been considered. There has been a consultation and improvements are offered to visibility at Bridgefoot Lane. Local concerns are noted, but on balance, the lack of objection from highways and officer assessment leads us to consider that the proposals will meet our highways policies. We've noted that there are changes in terms of the building. We're going to have fabric first design for this building. It will meet our higher standards. I've mentioned the measures of carbon efficiency in terms of the new building. And you'll note that there is a mention of the fallback position in this report, where if there is no change, then these measures will not be delivered on site. So with the mitigation offered in terms of additional planting, suitable VLT glazing, controlled finished floor levels and sections, the consideration of the fallback position, should there be no grant of permission here, and the self-build housing unit, which will create an additional self-build housing unit, which will help to address an identified shortfall that we have for self-build housing, then officers believe that there is a positive planning balance for these proposals, and we recommend approval subject to those appropriate conditions listed in terms of the heads in your report. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Excellent presentation. Okay, we move to speakers. First is Parish Council, Councillor Richard Allen. You come to the front, please. You'll have 3 minutes.
Morning. Thornhill Farm, Bridgefoot Lane. Clyde Parish Council object to the planning proposal at Thornhill Farm due to the size of the building, the amount of additional glazing and the impact this will have on the protected dark skies. The impact of the proposed building and also what the impact of the building will have on the landscape. And The size, as I said earlier, the size of the building is proposed is double the size, with a threefold increase. In the amount of glazing, the proposed building will dominate the landscape and is out of character. Irrespective of sometimes of the hedges, you only don't have a really clear view of the building. You're only looking at a side view, but if you took it away, it will have quite an impact. Will dominate the landscape and is out of character. It is much larger than any other building dwellings nearby, and the materials and design are not sensitive to the area in which it sits. There is a little screening, and the parish council are concerned at night the light from the building will flood the area. The existing residents of Glamford Road will have a direct line of sight to the new building, which will also impact on them. The access to the site is narrow, but going by the previous presentation, is being attended to because it is very narrow. For this reason, outlined above, the Clyde Parish Council object to the proposal. And it's not really in keeping with the Glaven Valley. We have had several dwellings of that nature in the area, and is saying not indicative to the area, but as we see it. So therefore, we do object.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have no other objecting speaker. One supporting speaker, Sasha Edmonds. Here comes the front. You only have 3 minutes.
Chair, members, good morning. My name is Sasha Edmonds. I'm the architect for the proposed new dwelling at Thornhill Farm. My clients are not developers. They're a local young family looking to relocate full-time to Thornhill Farm and become active members of the Clyde community. The planning officer's report confirms the ways in which the submitted design is compliant with planning policy. So I'll use my time to focus on the 3 concerns raised by the parish council, namely scale, glazing, and landscape screening. First, regarding scale and massing. The new home is larger than the existing bungalow. Excuse me, but the scale is considered to be appropriate relative to the generous scale of the plot. Careful consideration has been given to site levels from the outset, with the GPS topographical survey provided setting out the existing site levels and subsequent use of those levels to set the building back into the site slope on the north and east sides to reduce the mass and impact on the landscape. The design has also been deliberately shaped to reduce perceived bulk, breaking down the volumes and enhancing layering, with stepped elements and vertical detailing to add articulation. As confirmed by the officer's report, in views from outside the site, the increase in size is effectively mitigated and does not result in a material increase in impact, and we welcome the conditions setting floor level and building levels to ensure there is no doubt over building height. Second, in considering glazing and nocturnal character, we have listened to the concerns raised, and since the original submission, we've reduced the glazing by nearly 19 square metres. We've expanded its screening elements on both the building and within the landscape, and we welcome conditions controlling lighting and requiring LVT light transmission glazing, limiting light spill into the landscape. Thirdly, the scheme now includes strengthened native hedgerow planting and additional tree and shrub groups positioned specifically to filter views from the north and west, where the existing dense tree planting becomes more gappy. Importantly, the recommendation includes conditions for implementation and replacement of failures for 10 years, so the screening is not optional. It's locked in and it will be maintained by the applicants. Touching on ecology and highways, the professional consultees raise no objections subject to conditions. The access will be significantly improved from the existing situation, improving safety on the road for all. Ecological mitigation and enhancements will be delivered, and the proposed new planting to the north more than outweighs any losses within the site and around the improved access visibility splays. Finally, the report is clear on the planning balance. This is a high-quality, highly energy-efficient self-build home with conditions securing landscape, lighting, materials, and performance. And there is a realistic fallback. Retention of the existing bungalow would bring none of these benefits. I would ask the members to kindly consider the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Local member then, Councillor Holiday.
Thank you, Chair. This proposes an extensive new build on the site of a modest bungalow. The proposed dwelling is taller, the mass is significantly greater, and the extent of glazing is vastly increased. Replacement buildings per our new plan policy HOU 6 should not materially increase the impact of the dwelling in the appearance of the surrounding area. In determining what constitutes a material increase in the impact, the policy goes on to say account will be taken of the size of the proposal in relation to the prevailing character of the area, the size of the existing property, the prominence of the site, plot coverage, and the impact of the proposal on the landscape of the area. I struggle to see how this proposal conforms with HOU 6 in terms of the scale of the replacement of the existing building. The proposed size is almost twice as large as its predecessor. The main roof level is 0.8 of a metre higher and 1.3 higher on the northern block. Regardless of the site extent, I would have thought that increase in scale and massing was considered significant. In addition, I don't see how this proposal complies with new local plan policy ENB2, which states that development proposals should demonstrate that their location and scale protect, conserve and enhance the pattern and quality of the distinctive landscape features, visually sensitive skylines and the setting of the Norfolk Coast National Landscape. The north elevation of the new building will be the most visible from the village and is the most prominent view in the landscape. The area of glazing is increased very significantly, in fact more than doubled. Even with reduced visible light transmission glass, this will drive a large increase in light emissions. The timber slats are welcomed, but will be positioned on less prominent elevations. The light spill will be significant. This will have subsequent adverse impacts on the national landscape's dark skies. I don't see how this glazing complies with the new local plan policy ENV1, which states that the highest degree of protection will be given to the designated landscapes and settings of the Norfolk Coast National Landscape. This policy goes on to say that proposals should minimise negative impacts on the key qualities of tranquility and sense of remoteness and nocturnal landscape character. The planning officer refers to large windows on both floors on north and west elevations, which are their most sensitive angle from a landscape standpoint. External blinds are proposed and welcomed, but as the officer states, these may not be enforceable. The natural screening on the north and northwest, where this dwelling comes into sight from the village, is patchy and incomplete. Mention is made of long views to the northwest below the tree canopy to Cly, which determines the proposed landscaping at that point. A lower level native hedge is offered, which will partially screen that corner of the new building, but keeping it visible across the fields. In my opinion, this proposed building materially increases the impact of the dwelling on the appearance of the surrounding area and is insufficiently mitigated, especially along the north and west boundaries. Thank you.
Thank you. Do officers wish to make any comment before we go to debate?
No, I'm not sure that there was anything materially different. I think we identify the same considerations under the plan policy. I think, Chairman, respectfully, we have a disagreement over the implementation of policy from both parties. So it's a respectful agreement to differ, I think.
Thank you. Debate. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you very much. A question. The parish referred to nearby buildings. Have we got a plan showing nearby buildings? And while we're looking for that, does the glazing meet the highest standards?
The detailed condition for VLT glazing will be to our standard consideration. That was recommended by the landscape officer, and I have agreed the detailed condition with the architect in terms of these submissions. So yes, it will meet those standards. Do we have a plan of the wider area? I suppose the only way we could show you that really would be if we could gain access to Google Earth. I'm not sure if that's possible. Can we take another question and see if that's possible?
That's what I intended to do. Yes, who wishes to go next? Probably get a Google Earth map up and nobody? Councillor Fish.
I've pulled it up on Google Maps, and I can't actually see. There's a barn on the other side of the road. I can't really see very much development anywhere near it, if that helps anybody.
We're going to get a map. I think Lauren is pulling up that, so you can see that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I just say that one of my pet hates is to find a location plan that doesn't tell me where it is. And that's on Bridgefoot Lane, but unless you know where Bridgefoot Lane is, you're a bit stymied.
We have validation requirements, Chairman, and the plan does meet those validation requirements. It's because it is so isolated, Chairman. There we are.
Yeah. Well, so we all have access to Google Maps. Now that I'm reading through the application, I do tend to use it myself to check where some places actually are. Yes.
Does that satisfy member concerns, Chairman?
It does appear to be remote, councillor. You want to?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I do travel Bridgefoot Lane on my way to Wiverton, and I have been inside that existing building many years ago, so I did know exactly where it was. But thank you very much.
Councillor Todd.
I've looked on Google Maps and to me it looks as though it's 0.2 miles away from the nearest building and to the west. So you've got Bridgefoot Lane and then there's a terraced housing. Oh, there is a very, very large house before that.
But there aren't, no, it's clear that there are no immediate neighbours as such, so. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, for me, there are two contests here within planning policy. Firstly, there might not be any near human neighbours, but there will be a lot of wildlife neighbours to this property. And I'm asking myself the question, is a lower, less efficient glazing in a smaller property less or more beneficial than a larger property, as we have proposed here, with a much higher standard of light pollution control in terms of the condition that Officer Elson was referring to? So in other words, is there going to be any GNG, glazing net gain, in terms of its effect on wildlife in this new proposed dwelling? And the other question is, or conflict is within clause 2 or paragraph 2 of HOU 6, which for those who've got the print version is on page 132 of the new local plan. It sort of chucks together a number of sort of development features, such as the prevailing character of the area. Well, we know that that is at the highest level because we've got 2 levels of protection here. It's in the Coastal National Designated Landscape, better known more widely as the AONB, as was. And we've also got the Glaven Valley Rural Conservation Area, which we reviewed and finalised and brought up to date in 2023 in this administration. So we've got that, and then we've got the size of the existing property, the prominence of the site, plot coverage, all in there. And it's almost as if, you know, there's all these on a ballot paper and we're having to vote for which are relevant and which are, as it were, challenged over others which perhaps are not. Now, I think under the old money local plan, I can put it that way, if you put something in that's more than 50% of its plot size, then that's very much frowned upon. And I guess that isn't the case here. It looks to me quite a sizable plot, and that the new design wouldn't breach that provision. And I think it is something that would have to get used to, that now it's about impact and not about size constraints in terms of the new dwelling. So it's like dumping the old mindset and getting used to the new consideration. But my question is, I'm quite concerned about light spillage. I think we're behind the curve, to be quite honest, and I don't want to digress too much. I think we should have a stronger dark skies policy here in Norfolk, more akin to the one in Cornwall. But that's another piece of work which may.
I'm sure that can come before
Yeah.
the planning policy at some point.
Yeah.
Is
So-
there a further specific point you wish to make?
Yeah, my specific
Constraints
point,
aren't,
my
are they?
specific point is, to what extent would the new dwelling improve light spillage compared to what exists now, given the standard of the current glazing, which is bound to be inferior to the standard of the, because they change almost, like you change your car, don't they? They change regularly, these recommendations on light spillage. So that's why I asked the question.
I'm not sure there's likely to be any data. I do have a note that we are dealing with the issue of external lighting under conditions, which, frequently it's external lighting that causes more problems than light from windows. But if officers wish to respond, please.
A precise question, Chairman. I'm not sure I can stand that level of precision with my answer, but I shall do my best. I don't have, I appreciate that. Thank you. The position is one where you have an unrestricted existing dwelling. The unrestricted dwelling could conceivably add new structures or new glazing without requiring planning permission. It can certainly add lighting without the requirement for planning permission. What this proposal does is, admittedly, it does increase the glazing area. You've heard this from all representations. So there will be an increase in glazing. There will be controls over what our landscape officer considers to be the sensitive elevations. Those will be subject to VLT glazing to the most rigorous standards that we apply. There will also be a restriction, as pointed out by Chairman, in terms of no new external lighting on site, and there will be a requirement for a lighting scheme to be submitted. So there are greater controls, but there is also greater glazing. I think it's one where I would always argue as a planning officer that bringing those matters under control in the absence of a clearly tightly drawn dark skies policy will give that control through the planning process. So I would suggest to you that on balance, yes, we will see a large building. Yes, we will see more glazing, but we will also have more control. So that's the consideration, I think, Chairman, I would direct members to, in the absence of being able to give you percentiles and lumens. I wish I could, but I can't.
Thank you.
That's helpful. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to speak? Yes, Councillor McDonald.
And I think what's just been discussed is very relevant, and it's more control, more modern, more better than what it was before, although slightly bigger. And on balance, I would like to propose we accept.
Thank you. Have a seconder? Are you seconding, Councillor Toy?
I was going to second it.
You were going to second. Okay, so all right, Councillor Toy first. Okay, unless anybody else has anything new to add, we will go to the vote, please. Recommendations for approval, subject to conditions.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Beattie?
For.
Councillor Brown?
For.
Councillor Fisher?
For.
Councillor for. Councillor Heinrich?
For.
Councillor Holiday? Councillor MacDonald?
For.
Councillor Neverway? Councillor Toy? For. And Councillor Vickers? For. That is 10 votes for, 1 abstention. The vote is carried.
Okay, the application is approved. Thank you. Right, I'm conscious of time. We do need to finish by 1 o'clock to remain within our constitutional meeting time. So it can be brief if necessary. We now move to possibly difficult one, the two Holt items, which are obviously interrelated. When you're ready, Mr. Gray.
Good morning, members. I think it is still morning, just about. We are here looking at the listed building consent application and retrospective planning permission for replacement windows at 2 The Beeches in Holt. As you will see here, the site lies to the southeast of the main Holt town centre on Station Road, as it highlighted on the map. To the right, you will see that it is a Grade 2 listed building and lies within the Holt conservation area. This is the applicant site plan provided, and then an aerial overview just giving you a bit more context of the layout of the area. This is an image taken from the Historic England website. So this is the only image we have of the building prior to development. Just trying to give you an idea of what that front elevation did look like in relation to the windows. This is This is the front elevation. For clarity, this application only pertains to the windows listed on the elevations. It's clear that the other windows on the first elevation for flat 1 have been replaced, but obviously this application is only for the ones listed on there. This is a close-up image of the external and internal for window 5. This is for window 6. We then move on to the rear elevation, again highlighted the windows that this application is subject to. This is for, again, internal and external for window 3. This is window 4. And then window 1, again highlighted on the plan on the bottom right, just a bit more context as to where they are. And then we move on to the side elevation, the south. As again highlighted, just the small window on the side elevation. Might be a little difficult to see on that previous photo, but as you can see, zoomed in there of that window and again internal. Provided this image just as a bit more context, so this is the other side elevation of the north, I believe, and there's no changes to this elevation. I believe this is not part of the applicant's ownership, but yeah, just thought that clarity would be useful. And then again, for greater context, I provided a image of the front elevation. So this is as seen from Station Road. So if you were standing, granted in the middle of the road, this is what you would see looking towards the property. Here we have a comparison photo, just again to try and loop back to then the previous photo we had from the Historic England website. On the left, you will see the image of the windows as before, and the image on the right is as it stands currently. And then I've provided again another comparison one just to try and show the front elevation as it is now and the windows as you'll see there. The main issue is obviously the thickness of the windows as described within the, I think in more detail than I shall now within the report for that. Yep.
Just volume on. Don't press it down.
I'll go closer. Yep, no problem. Again, yes, this is, as I said, front elevation showing the windows of the building. Primary concerns and the issues raised is obviously highlighted within the report, but it is of the use, the windows not considered to be, are considered to be at odds with the early 19th century building and would therefore harm the significance of the Grade 2 listed building and Holt Conservation Area. This application is therefore recommended, or these two applications are therefore recommended for refusal. It's obviously the long refusal reason. I shan't read it all out to you now, but I imagine you've already in the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, I have a number of speakers here. We can start with Maggie Pryor again. You can speak from where you are, put the microphone on.
Thank you. That's great. Okay. Right, this obviously hasn't been a simple report to try and put together, but Town Council are have asked me to come and speak today and report that they are in, or we are in support of this application. We've considered many aspects which are linked to the case, including the eco benefits, practicality, safety, and the precedent of many other replacement windows already present. And that's one that obviously leads to some confusion. However, the resident replaced windows that were rotten, drafty, unsafe, with modern energy efficient windows that have genuinely transformed their ability to live comfortably, affordably, and safely in their own home. And these new A-rated windows have improved heat retention enormously at a time when all our energy costs continue to cause real anxiety for us all. The difference these windows make is not cosmetic. It has a practical, financial, and an essential safety impact. The resident has experienced a dramatic reduction in heat loss and heating bills, and the flat is now warm, secure, and easy to ventilate. These are meaningful and everyday benefits that support well-being, particularly for someone later in life. It is extremely important, we feel, to recognise that the resident acted in good faith. The building was purchased under its old name, Shrublands, and its listed status was not clear to the resident, nor the solicitor, nor the estate agent. There was no sign on the building to indicate it was listed under a different name. The intention here was never to cause harm, only to resolve a serious comfort and safety issue. We would also like to highlight the wider context around these applications. The Beeches is already surrounded by a significant number of modern replacement windows installed over many years across several flats. These are visible on multiple elevations and have become part of the building's lived character. It seems disproportionate to us to single out this one resident for enforcement when the visual impact of their windows is very little different, and in some cases less noticeable than others already in place. The resident has chosen a style intended to be as close a match as possible with modern materials available. From street level, and within the context of the other replacements around them, the windows do not appear disruptive or out of character. They sit comfortably within the appearance of a building as it is lived in today, not as it would have been lived in 2 centuries ago. Finally, we ask the committee to consider the practical alternatives. Reinstating old single glazed timber units would introduce cold, drafts and condensation. Secondary glazing, often suggested as a heritage-friendly solution, would be difficult for a resident to manage safely, especially in an emergency. These are not theoretical concerns, they affect day-to-day living and personal well-being. In this case, retaining the new windows offer very real public benefits. Reduced energy consumption, lower carbon emission, affordable heating for an older resident, and safe, unusable, secure home. I do have to think on one hand that it is quite strange to me and not very clear why we have one person singled out at this moment in time, where others have obviously just been accepted as time has gone on. And I'm not sure, though, where that sits under planning regulations. But I do respectfully ask the members to reconsider the reasons why, the thought behind those, and the confusion that was not the lady's responsibility. It was, in fact, a lack of information from whatever source. And those things put together, I don't think should put her in such a position as she finds herself now. I can only ask that you look at these with that in mind and to actually consider that the best was done to get something that was a very similar construction, even though the material is not, obviously, timber.
To stop you there.
Thank you.
I have no objection. Speaker registered. A supporting speaker, Gina Ward. You have 6 minutes. Put the microphone on for you.
Thank you. Good morning. I am not here to have a battle with North Norfolk District Council, but I must state the facts. We moved into the Beeches January 23. At no time were we informed by the estate agent Keys of Sheringham, neither by our solicitors, that the building was in fact listed. And in fact, having got to know all the residents, neither did they. The building is in a conservation area. I endorse the fact that on the District Council's website, there is no mention of the Beeches. And only within the last 10 days, they've now decided to put, or the listing people have decided to put pictures with the names. There's 118 properties on your official North Norfolk Council listed buildings in Holt, which I refer to. There is nothing on there that you can find, and if you familiarise yourself with it, that says the Beeches. Go to 107, and then it says shrublands, to which we were not aware, although we're aware at the rear of the complex there is Shrublands Court, which meant absolutely nothing to us. I have to hold to account North Norfolk District Council for misinformation on that list, the Keys estate agents and the solicitors. The solicitors have admitted liability because as it stands at the moment, should we wish to move our property until we have this matter cleared up, is worthless. When we moved into the property, the first window we replaced was approved by Randall and Retina due to their neglect. They were the management people at Orbit, and that had been neglected for so many years. The window was completely rotten due to the fact there was 2 meters of gutter which was detached and came down in front of the window like Niagara Falls, photographs which we have. Other windows were rotten. The windows in the lease should be painted every 4 years. They have not been painted for 8 years. And the Elm Group took over almost 2 years ago, and we're still in the same position. Existing windows on the property are cheap, cheerful, bog standard white UPVC windows, and they certainly did not raise any alarms with us when we found our windows were not fit for purpose. They were rotten, they were painted over so you could not get out in case of a fire escape, and this is a first floor apartment. The secondary double glazing was not toughened glass and is the full height of these large windows, which contribute to a significant heat loss. The lower windows do not comply with current building regulations, and I'm a great stickler and understand current building regulations because they were not toughened glass. Anything below 800 millimetre, you require toughened glass. Lifting secondary double glazing out, which was the only way, even if the windows had been able to move, was not in toughened glass. I made a great deal of effort, having lived on a building site in Norwich, St Andrews Park, and was appointed a director there. So I am well aware of listed buildings and conservation, which I do fully appreciate. But I fully appreciate the efficiency of windows and any construction with today, because I am a great believer in environmental control. To add insult to injury, the building next door to us, having gone to such an extent that it was like for like, that in appearance that was replaced, not only for me, but apartment number 1, who have not been approached as I am aware. And the building next door is the old police house, and that is in fact adopted, listed, and it is full of UPVC windows. Now, I am hoping that you are all aware, and I don't know whether it's on the website, but 4 copies of this were submitted to North Nordic Council. There are 45 pictures here of windows on Station Road, Bull Street, etc., in the centre of Holt, which contravene listing. 8 of those are listed buildings. I'm addressing conservation as well. They are conservation. And if you go down Station Road, the cottages there are not even in heritage colours. So I'm finding that I'm feeling very vindicated. I really feel that I have been perhaps approached and are being used as a test case because Pandora's box has been completely with the lid off. I have endeavoured to keep this low key because I believe that all this, if it became national public knowledge, is a great, great embarrassment to North Norfolk District Council because of the misleading information. I am a great believer in control, but there is control with the actual moving into the 21st century, and you cannot expect retired people, and half the complex is with UPVC windows.
I'm going to stop you at that point. Thank you. Local members. I think it's just yourself, Councillor Beattie. Do you wish to add anything? Yes. Thank you. Over to members. We have some conservation officers here if you wish to ask any questions of them. No. A number of concerns here. Let's start with Councillor Vickers.
Thank you, Chairman. UPVC windows on listed buildings are a no-no, but I listened to what this lady says, and she's, I think, entirely innocent in this case. I just want to understand why, when there are other UPVC windows in this very building and in the rest of Holt, why this lady has been singled out, and I think that's what she is trying to get across to us. Could the planning officers explain why this lady is being singled out? And is this a test case, as she says?
Okay, so as you probably see in the papers, it was myself who brought this to Development Committee because I am acutely aware that whatever decision we take today in respect of Flat 2 has implications for other properties within this block of flats. So, as Mrs. Warder said, there are other properties that have installed UPVC windows without listed building consent. So as I understand that a complaint was made about the windows installed and the enforcement team have been out to investigate, and that's what's led to the applications coming in. To Mrs. Ward's credit, she actually has submitted an application, whereas other flats haven't done so yet. But clearly, whatever decision we take today will have implications for those other flats. That's really why it's important that you as a committee get to have a say as to whether you think the harm is so great to justify action, or whether you think there are considerations that would lead to a different conclusion. So clearly, yeah, it's a difficult one. There are lots of issues to take into account. If you're looking at it purely from a heritage perspective, as has been said already, listed plastic windows and listed buildings are generally frowned upon. It's not something that we would encourage. And if you say in the reports, had we had a chance to have a discussion about the window replacements before they were installed, we might have suggested something different. But we are where we are. And as a committee, we need to sort of take that into account. Leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else wishes to come in? Yes, Councillor Brown.
I may need special permission from you, Mr. Chairman, because I'm predetermined on this, so I won't be voting in the debate, but I just wanted to say thank you to Mrs. Ward in the way that she's presented the circumstances to us today. I appreciate the difficulty that this is causing. I am a little bit concerned that the normal conveyancing process, which I've done for most of my working life, would involve a local search application in the local land charges register to North Norfolk District Council. And one of the standard questions on that form is it a listed building? Is it in a conservation area? And I think we need to distinguish between the two. Many of the windows in the properties that have been mentioned elsewhere in the town may be just in the conservation area and not in listed buildings as well as the conservation area. But here we have flat number 2, which lies in both. So if the solicitors have admitted negligence, then obviously there's a right of action against those solicitors for misadvice in that conveyancing process. There are other ways of finding out. There are searches, not just to North Norfolk District Council, that would reveal the status of the property and put any prudent purchaser on notice. I find it incredible that a local estate agent did not either know, or if they didn't pass information on to Mrs. Ward at the time, given their experience in this area. They are well-established estate agents. But that said, I think I made a call yesterday to Historic England, and I asked them what the process was for updating their records when names of properties change, because there's no established practice dealing with any authority, land registry, local authorities, Historic England even. There's no duty or responsibility on any one entity to inform that the change. However, what they did say was that this is number 28 Station Road. The building is known as number 28 Station Road. And had that been put to them, they would have been able to tell you that the listing number of it is 1373768. That's the listing number at Historic England. So it's possible to find out whether the building has listed status by other means, not just relying upon North Norfolk District Council, which is perhaps an important point. But it does concern me, and I fully understand the applicants feeling that they may be being scapegoated slightly here. And I wonder if there is a compromise here where perhaps the windows on the front elevation, which I have passed countless times when I lived in Holt, may be subject to alteration, but those less conspicuous, perhaps at the rear, maybe are not. I don't know if that compromise is possible, but any expense falling to the applicant, I would suggest can be recovered as a head of damage from the negligent solicitors, if that is the case. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Yes, councillor Tory.
I've just gone on to, you know, houses for sale, and I've actually found the property. And nowhere, this is Sowerby's, and nowhere does it say that it's a listed building. And I think it's quite right that if the applicant and buyer of this property can prove that she's never been told that it is listed, then I think she's got the right to go back and, yeah, just make a claim on that. I can see it's a problem for us to actually say yes to this and let it go through, because it lays down a foundation for so many others. But I think in this case, this is a really unfortunate and unfair situation for this lady. And yeah, I'm not really sure how I will vote at the moment, but I just wanted to say that I can't find anywhere that lists that building that tells me that you have to be careful on how you renovate. Thank you.
Yes, I think it's a somewhat convoluted and clearly caveat emptor rules apply, but there does seem to be total confusion as to getting information. We all accept that buildings need to modernise and adapt to meet the current needs. And might be worth looking at those two photographs again. Has there been significant change? I note on page 57, it notes that the level of harm is being quantified as less than substantial, which normally has meant that we've allowed these things pass. So I'm still like you, sitting on the fence on this, but we'll hear arguments. Councillor Fitch-Tillett, then Councillor Vickers.
I have huge sympathy with you on this, and you are not alone, because I had a very similar. Can you hear me? Well, they're not good, are they? Okay. I had a similar situation with a piece of land that was subject to coastal erosion. The estate agents allowed somebody to buy it. You probably saw it in the press about 6 weeks ago. The estate agents and solicitors are being very, very cavalier, I think would be, in respect of just trying to sell properties without explaining the various difficulties. Now, please don't take this personally. This is not your fault, and I do so hope you go back to A, your agents that sold it, and B, your solicitors, who thankfully have admitted fault. But it's a listed building. We have to respect that. We are a planning authority, and I'm very, very sorry, but I will go with the officer's recommendation and propose it as such.
I'll have to stop you there. You did have your 6 minutes, and we do need to keep things moving. We have a proposer then, Councillor Fitch-Tillett. Councillor Vickers.
I was just going to ask a technical question of the planning officers. Is there any way that we could come to a compromise here, acknowledging that this lady is not at fault and not setting a precedent if we vote against your recommendation?
It's tricky. I mean, I think we need to be careful not to be drawn into potentially civil matters which are outside of the remit of a planning decision that you're making today. So there's been concerns about advice that was given at the time of purchase. That's not a decision that necessarily should affect the judgment you make today. Clearly, you can make a decision on the planning and the planning application and the listed building application, and you could decide, should you wish to refuse that listed building consent and planning permission. But then there is the subsequent question then of what do you do in terms of enforcement? And that's a different decision in terms of, well, do you decide to only take enforcement action against the front windows, the windows that are visually publicly prominent, or do you decide to do something different? But clearly, I mean, the report sort of tries to present a sort of fairly balanced analysis of the situation, because there are issues, and the applicant has set out those concerns about advice that she received at the beginning. But I think we really need to make a decision on whether the heritage harms are outweighed by other material considerations. And the report says, I'm not sure they necessarily do, although you could give weight to the environmental benefits of double glazing and the energy efficiency benefits, but that's a judgment call. And clearly there are implications, whatever decision we take here. If we were to allow this, then clearly there are other people with listed buildings who will look at this decision and say, okay, I'm going to put plastic windows in my listed building, or do the works and apply afterwards. So that's why I brought it to committee, because it's such a can of worms in terms of the implications of this decision for whatever action we take, not only in Holt, but the whole of the district, where we've got over 2,000 listed buildings, and we need to make sure we're not sort of setting ourselves on a course that creates similar again. So yeah, it's not easy, but I mean, it's up to you as a committee as to whether you want to put forward a suggestion of how we would deal with this in terms of if it were to be refused and any subsequent enforcement. But likewise, you can also vote to support it if there's, in your mind, enough material considerations to go against the listed building concern.
Just a couple of questions from these officers. Firstly, we're looking at an individual application. I'm not aware that in law our decisions are then set a precedent, and that other listed buildings would still be expected to make planning applications for alterations. Could you just clarify that yourself on the committee, please?
Well, I mean, we always say that each application is decided on its own merits. Clearly, in the case of this particular property, if we were to decide to, say, allow this scheme, then the neighbours in that same block of flats would expect to receive a similar decision. But beyond this particular building, you're right, each case is assessed on its own individual merits. But this is slightly different in the sense of whatever decision we take here will directly impact what we do on other properties in the same block.
Google, wonderful tool. Yes, under consumer protection regulations, estate agents must disclose all material information, which includes whether a property is listed. And yeah, it must not be, that information must not be left out.
Mr. Chair. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Chair. A technical question. Is the objection the type of material on a listed building, or is it the appearance?
I don't know, Chair, whether this would be an opportune time to bring in our conservation officer, because that they could explain that in more detail. I mean, the report does set out, and particularly as set out on well, if you look on the recommendations page on page 60, it sort of sets out in the reasons that the reasons why the windows are considered inappropriate for the listed building. So it goes into detail about the materials, the thickness of the frames, the sort of modern glazing is quite different to traditional glazing. It's quite flat and has different reflective characteristics. So there's those sort of aspects, and it doesn't have the same sort of articulation that you get in timber glazing. So it's those sort of factors that are set out on page 60.
Well, okay. I'm conscious of the time. We have two further applications. Would conservation officers like to make any observations on those points, please?
Just to say that it's not an objection to the principle of double glazing, it's more an objection to the material of plastic and, like Jeff just mentioned, the qualities that has in comparison to timber.
Material. That's a deciding factor. Yeah, so I wonder whether that's taken into account the advances that have been made in material. I mean, it's possible now to make a set of windows of a plastic derivative, which is far superior to wood, and so on. So, you know, this concerns me, quite frankly, this particular application. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Fitch-Tillett has proposed acceptance of the recommendations. Presume that would apply for both of the two. Okay. Is there a seconder? Councillor Fisher, you're seconding again both.
Yes, I would like to have a quick say, Mr. Chairman. I am very sympathetic with the applicant here, and a lot has gone wrong with this. And we can't comment on civil matters, but I feel we're in between a rock and a hard place here, and I don't think we can go down the line of allowing this and then not allowing something else next door. I think we've got to be true to the listing of the building, and so therefore I will second Andy's.
Okay, thank you. Unless anybody has anything new to bring to the debate, can we go to the vote, please? We're doing them individually, so there'll be two votes. We'll take the application first, followed by the listed building application. So if we can deal with PFs 252133, the application itself first, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Beattie?
Abstain.
Councillor Brown?
Abstain.
Councillor Fisher?
For.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett? For. Councillor Hankins? Councillor Heinrich?
Against.
Councillor Holiday? Councillor MacDonald?
For.
Councillor Neverway? Councillor Toy?
Abstain.
And Councillor Vickers?
Abstain.
That's 5 votes for, 1 against, and 5 abstentions.
Thank you. The application is refused. Listed building application.
Thank you. Councillor Beattie?
Abstain.
Councillor Brown?
Abstain.
Councillor Fisher?
For.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett? For. Councillor Hankins? Councillor Heinrich?
Against.
Councillor Holiday? Councillor MacDonald?
For.
Councillor Neverway? Councillor Toy?
Abstain.
And Councillor Vickers? That is 4 votes for, 1 against, 6 votes abstaining.
Right, not the sort of decision I'd like to see, but we are where we are. So that is again refused. I would hope that officers and the enforcement team can resolve this amicably. There's clearly been a whole raft of issues here, not of the applicant's creation, not necessarily of ours either, but let's say, can we please deal with this sensitively? Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone. So this is item 11 on the agenda, which is application PF 252102. So that's change of use from agricultural land to a dog walking field with associated secure car parking, a shed for dog walkers, associated vehicular access improvements, and a car park for Thursford Cemetery. So I won't spend too much time on this. It's a fairly straightforward one. There is one consideration which is around highways matters, but if we go through the slide, so here we have the slide, the site outlined in red for you. This is the site plan. So as you can see, outlined in green, we've got proposed fencing around the site. The shed, which is marked with that black square, and you've got an existing site access point into the site, and that would be surfaced with crushed concrete. And then you can see just behind that the car parking area, which would serve both the dog walking site and the adjacent cemetery. And this is just a zoomed in view of the site. And as I said, access through that single point of access off Gunthorpe Road. So this is the proposed shed, nothing much to that, standard timber shed with felt roof. It's approximately 2.7 metres high, so fairly modest. So these are the photos of the adjacent road. So this is Gunthorpe Road looking towards North Lane. As you can see, point of note here is to note the what highways refer to as the substandard nature of the road and its single track width. And the road is also currently used for parking for people using the cemetery. And this is looking just in the other direction. Again, just note the narrowness of that road. This is the current site access. So at present, it is relatively unmade, but as I said, that would be made good with a crushed concrete surface. And this is in better weather, that's the same access. This is the junction of Gunthorpe Road with North Lane. So if we skip on to the next slide, so you can see there's a better view of it. There is a slight incline off Gunthorpe Road onto that lane. Visibility, again, from the highways response we had, is that it is very severely restricted, particularly in that direction we are looking in due to the trees and vegetation there. And this is approaching from a westerly direction, going eastwards. And again, you can see the access on, the junction with Gunthorpe Road on the left there. And as you can see, the visibility again is fairly severely restricted, and it is a crossroads as well. So the main considerations of this application are listed, but as mentioned, the only matter really for consideration today is the highways matter. So in terms of the character of the area, the principle of development, the design, landscape impact, amenity and biodiversity, there are no officer issues with that, so we are perfectly happy with those. The only issue is highways, so we have received a highways objection to this. So their main view is that the road is substandard and it is too narrow for the anticipated increased vehicular use of Gunthorpe Road, which would be attracted by what is proposed in terms of the dog walking field. And they also highlight that there is severely limited visibility, which falls far below the highways expectation of a development of this nature. And that, in their view, has implications in terms of highway safety. They've also highlighted for the fact that there has been one historic accident at this junction, which they brought to our attention. But as mentioned, overall, it is from their point of view, an objection on highway safety grounds. Now, it is worth bearing in mind that this is a balanced decision to an extent. So there are benefits to the scheme. The parish council have supported this, and it is recognised that this is a facility that would be of benefit to the village, and there are associated economic benefits alongside that in terms of to the village and also in terms of farm diversification, although we do have limited information on the diversification aspect. But it's just to highlight that there is a balancing act here. But we have considered that and officers are of the view that we are in agreement with highways that on balance, the highway safety aspects do outweigh the benefits in this instance. So the recommendation is one of refusal in being contrary to policies ENV 8 and CC 9 of the local plan. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. A couple of speakers. We can start with Councillor Jeremy Boland from Parish Council. You come to the front, please. Mic at the end. Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm speaking on behalf of Thursford Parish Council. We had a lengthy discussion about it at our recent Parish Council meeting and were in favour of the application. We discussed the highways issue, which I understand is a major problem. The road in question, Gunthorpe Road, is historically known as Cemetery Road, but I suspect Google now call it Gunthorpe Road. But we used to have a sign there which was provided by the council, and it called it Cemetery Road. So the sign has subsequently fallen down, just to avoid any confusion there. The access at either end has been improved quite a lot since those photographs were taken. Obviously, those were taken in summer, but since then, the local farmers have taken quite a lot off the corners, and it's much easier to see out. I've been up there a couple of times this week just to see how it feels coming out of that road, and it's not all that difficult at all. And it's perfectly feasible for the farmers concerned to keep it well back. We're only talking about probably 1 or 2 vehicles an hour maximum. There's currently probably about 20 or 30 vehicles an hour using it for other purposes as a little cut through. And so 1 or 2 vehicles an hour doesn't seem like very much extra. From the Parish Council point of view, we like the idea of the diversification of the land. Henry and Victoria Cushing, who own the field, have been doing a lot with their other land to diversify, including a big pumpkin stall in the autumn and a maze in the summer, and also an adventure golf facility. So this is really part of their diversification plans to use land in a better way. And we like the idea of that. We also very much like the idea of car parking for the cemetery. At the moment, there is no parking at all for anybody visiting the cemetery, including burials there. And at the moment, they're having to park on the verge, partly perhaps straddling the road, which is narrow enough in any case. So from the Parish Council point of view, a car parking space is very much to be encouraged. That's about all, because I understand you've got to get through a little bit more before having lunch or something.
Thank you. Okay, I have no objecting speaker. 1 supporting speaker. There is Victoria Cushing. Come to the front. Swap over.
Hello, I'm Victoria Cushing, the owner, alongside with my husband. We are farmers. We are trying our best. I'm sure you all know how bad farming is, but it really is bad. We really do not make any money off our fields and off our crops. We want to use 1 acre of a field in order to gain some added income. I'm hoping that it will make around £6,000 a year for us, which is not a huge amount of money, but it's significantly more than that field will make if we grow any crops on it. We are part of the village. We live just on the other side of that crossroads, and I truly believe that it will be a maximum of 1 or 2 cars an hour that will be using it. We're supposed to be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I've only forecast in my projections that we would have around 4 bookings a day. I would be highly surprised if we were booked for 12 hours solid, 7 days a week. It would be much more likely 3 or 4 bookings a day, which is an additional 3 or 4 cars a day. We will do our best to cut back and maintain the verges and maintain that visibility. And my husband can cut that back with his hedge cutter as required. And I think it also said about the deer fencing, it will be appropriate deer fencing, nothing else. And we're happy to do any other additional planting or native species, whatever, on the extra hedgerows that we are proposing to put in.
Thank you. Councillor Buttercover, you finally get your starring turn.
Thank you. So thank you for your report. You will have seen in the report that the site is in an acceptable location under policies SS1 and SS2 of the local plan, and in principle meets the criteria for development in this location for its intended purpose. It also accords with policies ENV1 and ENV8 of the new local plan, adopted recently by this authority, relating to its impact on the environment. So why this application before the committee today? Highways have objected on the grounds that the road network is unsuitable for increased traffic in this area. I would have to agree that Gunthorpe Road is a narrow country lane with no designated passing areas and is unlit at night. However, as you've just seen with the pictures, the road has a clear line of vision as open countryside on one side of the road means it is possible to see oncoming vehicles from a substantial distance. When I went out to see the location for myself, I could see a cyclist coming and going long before they were near the site. So you will appreciate they are much smaller than a car. The site already has a vehicular access. This application is not seeking to create a new entrance onto the highway. The fact there is no street lighting, comment that's repeated again and again in the report, has no impact because the site would not be used during the hours of darkness. Currently, there is, if there is a burial or people wishing to pay their respects in the cemetery, they have to park the cars on the narrow lane. Whilst this doesn't block visibility, it does make the lane almost impassable at times. This application seeks to improve the road condition by creating a parking area for the cemetery. The Highways Authority states the road is not suitable for increasing car level usage by 1 vehicle an hour. If the road is in that poor a state, surely they should be looking to improve its quality. I am sure we all drive on roads of this quality regularly. Then I come to where Gunthorpe Road joins the more major roads. One end comes out onto North Lane. If you have ever visited the Thursford Spectacular, you will be aware of the number of vehicular movements along this road in more often than not total darkness and less than favourable weather conditions. We're hearing of one recorded accident on this junction. I haven't been able to find the report of that, despite having access to some of the reports. The only accident I've been able to find details of, and I don't know whether officers can help with this, is the accident that was on the Hindringham Thursford Road last winter, but that is a considerable distance from this location. The report notes the height of a hedge that is actually owned, it's turned out under investigation, by this authority. And they've said they'd be very happy to maintain it for us, to improve the visibility there. So I actually think it's a win-win for us because they wouldn't be charging us for that. And the last thing that I think is really important, and I think is actually quite disturbing, the report states the other end comes out onto Hindringham Road, which it doesn't. It comes out onto Thursford Road. So how can we be taking the Highways report at its face value? I completely understand, having been a member of this planning committee for several years myself. I understand the highways report carries heavy weight with this group, and so it should. It's entirely appropriate. But I do think it's important that we also measure that against one vehicular movement an hour, possibly two if they overlap. And I think we need to think about it. We heard last night about the impact the current government is having on rural communities and businesses. This application is simply a farmer trying to diversify their business. It will provide a new service to the local area, and I would argue in some areas improve road safety. I would ask you to consider accepting it. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Very persuasive speech. Councillor Beattie.
I'm definitely in favour of what Sarah's just said. Basically, at the end of the day, farmers need to diversify, otherwise we're going to lose our farming community. There's no two ways about it. And that's being absolutely honest. I think we should go against the officer's recommendation for refusal and accept it, and I'll actually propose that we do accept it.
Right. On procedure, I think it's right. We have to reject the officer recommendation first,
Reject it.
and then we can have an alternative, but it will need to be couched in planning
I
terms.
propose that we object to the officer's recommendation at this time.
And I'll second that.
I haven't got there yet. I was reading the river as the speakers, and I know which way this is going. So let's spend too much time arguing if we need to. Councillor Holiday.
Thank you, Chair. I understand the highways issues, but if you think about the impact of dog walking on what used to be the AONB, actually if you can walk your dogs out of the very, very protected landscapes, that's a very good thing. So I would say from experience, there's a similar one I drive past quite often. They are used quite a lot, is that you do have cars there seemingly most of the day. But I do think the benefits that would come to our precious landscapes is going to outweigh that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In order to assist you a little, I will propose that we accept the officer's recommendations.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to second, or do I need to do it from the chair? Yeah, second from the chair. In that case, can we take a vote then, Lauren, please?
Thank you, Chairman. So the recommendation is for refusal of the application. So a vote for is a vote for refusal. Councillor Beattie?
Yeah, if you refuse, we have to vote against.
We have to vote first on the officer's recommendation, which is for refusal.
If you want to go to a vote to accept it, then we have to
refuse
the first one, so we have to vote against it.
Against. Councillor Brown?
Reluctantly for.
Councillor Fisher?
For.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett?
Against.
Councillor Hankins? Councillor Heinrich?
Actually against.
Councillor Holiday? Councillor MacDonald?
Against.
Councillor Neverway? Councillor Toy?
Against.
And Councillor Vickers?
Against.
That is 2 votes for and 9 votes against.
Right, I now need a proposer and a seconder to approve the application, but I'll need some words to go with that, please, which officers might wish to help with.
Well, I mean, just picking up on what Councillor Holiday said about actually the benefits of walking dogs outside of the AONB that will be delivered by this permission, you could attract considerable weight to that, because it is an issue that we know of in our district. So actually, if that's a reason for overturning it, then I think that can attract weight. Clearly, you'll have a view on whether you disagree with the highway authority's interpretation of the impact on the highway network. But I mean, say other than that, as Officer Rubin has said, there's no other policy objections to this proposal. It's solely about highway matters. So if you consider those other matters to outweigh the highway concerns, then it's a matter for you to say so in your reasoning for approval.
Councillor Fisher.
Yes, it does seem that the good outweighs the bad here, and the junction has been improved by the sound of it, or can be improved as possible for it to be improved more. The car park will help to provide parking for the cemetery as well as the new facility, and the weighting, I think, should go in that direction rather than again.
So you are proposing approval of the application. Thank you. The seconder, please, Councillor Hankins. Yes, go ahead.
Yep, so if we are going for approval, just to say that we would require some conditions on the approval as well. So if you're happy for me to run through what those would be. Yeah, so as usual, it'll be the time limit approved plans, the parking to be provided in accordance with the approved plans, a landscaping scheme. We would seek to restrict it to individuals only using the site and not groups. Conditioning the opening times, external lighting to control future installation of that on the site. And finally, we would require the submission of a biodiversity net gain plan prior to approval.
That I'm just advised is mandatory to the P&G element, so there's no way around that. Very quickly then, Councillor Holiday.
Dog bin?
Dog bin, waste bin, yes. Add that to the list.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, can we go to the vote? We're now voting on approval subject to the conditions and other matters as outlined by officers.
Councillor Beattie,
For.
Councillor Brown,
Against.
Councillor Fisher,
For.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett, for Councillor Hankins, Councillor Heinrich,
For.
Councillor Holiday, Councillor MacDonald,
For.
Councillor Neville, Councillor Toy, and Councillor Vickers. For. That's 10 votes for, 1 against. The vote is carried.
Application is approved. Good. And now our final decision item. This is Walcott, demolition of an outbuilding and erection of a large single-storey extension. Are you ready?
Thank you. Good afternoon, members. This application is PF/25/2618, which seeks permission to demolish the existing attached outbuilding and erect a single-storey extension. Just to provide an update, there was a late representation received with some photographs on the 10th of February. And to summarise, they state that there was concerns about the condition of the external roadside wall of the outbuilding and stated a preference for the external brick chimney as opposed to a stainless steel flue. Of course, sorry. The supporting statement also stated that the proposal would be energy efficient, meet building regulations and significantly improve the stability of the existing cottage and improve the look of the property and surrounding area. It should be noted there was no structural survey submitted as part of the application, and the proposal to replace the existing outbuilding with an extension doesn't present the only opportunity to safely and suitably manage the concern about the condition of the outbuilding. If we move on to the next slide, this is the location plan with Coast Road and the Grade 1 listed All Saints Church highlighted. This is the proposed site plan with the extension shown as well. This is the rear of the property, side of the property, and the front of the property. These are the existing floor plans, and these are the proposed floor plans. And then we've got the existing elevations and the proposed elevations. The key issues are the scale of the development and the design of the proposal. Overall, officers have made the judgment that the form of the proposal does not accord with the existing dwelling and the outbuildings, and that the resultant floor space of the proposal would not be subordinate to the host dwelling, which is contrary to policies HOU 6 and ENV 8. Officers have also made the judgment that the proposal would result in less than substantial harm to a designated heritage asset that is not outweighed by any public benefit, which is contrary to policies ENV 7 and ENV 8 of the adopted North Norfolk Local Plan, as well as paragraphs 212 and 215 of the National Planning Policy Framework. The recommendation is therefore for refusal. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no parish speaker, no objecting speaker, no supporting speaker. Local member Councillor Porter present, so we have. Where is she? Oh, we're hiding behind. Sorry, I didn't notice you for the hat. 5 minutes, go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, the parish council had no objections to this proposal either. It's quite a small property. There are no near neighbours whatsoever. The nearest building is the church, and there are no windows that overlook this property whatsoever. There is an established hedge between the church and this property. And personally, we think that this extension will make it a more habitable property. The parking, I don't see where parking comes into it. There is existing parking. There's not going to be any more vehicles visiting the building if they have this extension. It's just to make it a more habitable place. And there are concerns about the wall, which is adjacent to the road. We get a lot of heavy vehicles travel that way, as it's the only route that Bacton Terminal can use for their heavy vehicles. It's quite narrow and it's on a bend. So yeah, every time a vehicle goes past, that wall is shaking. And this extension would incorporate strengthening that wall. So I have no objections to it at all.
Okay, thank you. Members? Anybody wish to?
Could we have a look at the plans again, please?
You can indeed. Who's up, please?
I think to aid your consideration, I think the officer concern here is that the size of the extension compared with the existing size of the existing house and the sort of the form of the extension. So it sort of resembles a single-story bungalow attached onto a 2-story house, and that's kind of the concern we have there, and the sort of the proximity to the Grade 1 listed church. There's concerns about. It's a very minor point, but it still does result in some harm to the overall setting of that building, because those that have driven along that road, I mean, the church is quite a dominant feature, but this sort of extension will, to some degree, mask or provide additional masking of that visibility of that church. But I say that's a negligible point. The key point here is the form of the extension and the size of it compared to the existing. I mean, you may as a committee come with a different view, but that's the officer's interpretation of our new local plan policies.
Thank you. Councillor Fisher, come back again.
Yeah, so yes, I agree with what you're saying. Has there been discussion with the applicant as to what we would be happy with, or are they saying this is it, this is what we want to construct, and we're going digging our heels in?
Sorry, I was just gathering my thoughts slightly. Yeah, discussions have been had, but it wasn't felt that it could be achieved to meet the floor space that the applicant appears to be requesting in their plans against what we feel would be compliant with policy and in line with the impact on the heritage asset as well. We just couldn't see a way that all of those needs could be met adequately.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Do we have an image of how close the property is to grade 1 All Saints Church? No. Just worried about section 72 considerations impacting heritage assets.
Can you work an approximate distance between the building and the porch?
Yeah, I've just measured it. So it's roughly about 45 metres as the crow flies. They are very close together.
Yeah, that's helpful. And on a sort of scale of 1 to 10, how conscious do we need to be about it being potentially on contaminated land?
There was a contaminated land report done. Just in section. I don't recall it being a particular concern within the report, but we will put an informative on that if there is any contamination found, the work needs to stop.
No, that's
we'll
right.
be contacted.
I'm quite happy to propose we accept the officer's recommendation, Mr. Chairman, if you want to know that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so
Sorry, there's a microphone on. I'm happy to second it.
recommendation, of course, for refusal. Does anybody else wish to speak on this? Mr. Fitzgerald?
No, I'm just going to vote and then I might say something later.
Thank you. So an area I'm particularly familiar with. I've been growing up not far from there. So, okay, nobody else wishes to speak. We have a proposer and seconder to go with the author recommendation, which is for refusal. Can you take a vote, please, Lauren?
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Beattie?
For.
Councillor Brown?
For.
Councillor Fisher?
For.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett?
Against.
Councillor Hankins? Councillor Heinrich?
For.
Councillor Holiday? Councillor MacDonald?
For.
Councillor Everway? Councillor Toy?
For.
And I believe we don't have Councillor Vickers. So that vote is carried. 9 votes for, 1 vote against.
Okay, recommendation for refusal, the application is refused. Thank you. Right. Let us rather quickly move on to the administrative aspects of our agenda. Development management performance update, please.
Okay. So if you hop over to page 79 of your agenda, so we've got the sort of the performance for, and this goes back to the period of November, just bearing in mind we didn't have a meeting in January. So this is the performance for November. It is in colour. The icons are in grey, which basically means there's been no change in terms of the 24-month performance since the last meeting. So we're still at 97% for majors and 95% for non-majors in terms of decisions within time. And our quality decisions are still up there with 1.56% for majors and 0.9% for minors. So it still puts it there in terms of the top quartile in terms of performance. As I said last time, we are starting to see more cases come through involving nutrient neutrality where they've been around for a long time and the applicant is less generous at giving extensions of time. So that's fundamentally what's affecting our performance. Yeah, there's a lot that the officers are now contending with, new local plan, new policies that we're all getting to grips with. Not just officers, but yourselves as members, no doubt getting to grips, and that is that we'll see some dips in performance, notably over coming weeks and months. But other than that, yeah. Perhaps you take any questions on performance?
Yeah, I'm sure we all agree with it. So. S106, no comments, thank you. Okay, let's just deal with appeals and enforcement.
It's all right, we've got 9 minutes to talk about appeals if you want to. Yeah.
Well.
So you'll see on page 83 a list of appeals. We've had quite a number of new appeals coming in. Bearing in mind, again, this covers a longer time frame because we didn't have the committee in January. So yeah, quite a few cases coming in and quite a few decisions coming out of the inspectorate, as you'll see in terms of well, bottom of page 85 onto page 86. So yes, there's been interesting output from the planning inspectorate. Most of those cases were dismissed. There was an allowed case at Plumstead related to custom and self-build homes. So we are looking at that decision and we are looking at sort of refining our processes and procedures in relation to custom and self-build homes, just to learn from the inspector's decision there. There's a debate at the minute about whether we have to secure custom and self-build homes via a Section 106 obligation or whether we can continue to use planning conditions. So yeah, we don't get a huge volume of those sort of cases, but there are people who submit self-build to negate the requirement for biodiversity net gain because it's exempt development under BMG. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, we maintain a register. The policy team maintain that register of people who are on the register for wanting to find a self-build plot. You don't necessarily have to be on a register to have a self-build plot, but it helps because it sets out a demand. It's not a need; it's a demand. So it's slightly different to our housing needs tests. But happy to take any questions on the appeal cases. I'll leave it at that.
Just a query from me before I go to councillor Holiday. On page 83, the Catfield one on Storglaw and Adam Road,
there's an error.
Turned away by the planning inspector. What does that mean?
I should have picked up on that. I did spot that yesterday and had a chat with the appeals officer. There was an original appeal which was turned away by the inspector because they confused their processes. But now that is live and that is in the process of completing statements. So that's one of my cases. So I've got to do a statement to the planning inspector on that one. And that was a case that did come before this planning committee in relation to container storage at Catfield. So some of you might be familiar with that case from a couple of years ago.
Councillor Holiday, then Councillor Brown.
Thank you very much. Page 87, Weybourne, change of use of barn to Pilates studios. This has been going on, as you can see, almost 2 years. Any way one can expedite it at all?
We do regularly approach the planning inspectorate. We do often get short shrift and say, go away, leave us alone. We're attending to things. So yeah, we're careful not to rattle the cage of the inspector because we don't want to annoy them that they then make a decision that we don't like. But yeah, we continually ask the question, and I can ask the enforcement team to prod and poke again and ask when we're going to get a response.
Page 85, appeal decisions, Brinton and Sharrington, PF 241479. Excellent decision on the part of the inspector, if I may say so, notwithstanding my interference by attending the hearing. He made, in my judgment, a sensible decision, Mr. Chairman. So that's really welcome to see. It was quite speedy as well, actually, in the scheme of things.
Any other questions, queries? Okay, thank you. We have no private business. I'm going to exclude the press and public, therefore